Welcome to the Pop Cult Pod. I am Vengeance. Nope. No, my name tag actually says I'm Tom Pod. I get those confused all the time. Get prepared for our DC special as we enter the Fandome.
This is a broadcast from the Pop Cult Pod.
Dome. My voice is gone. That's the end of the episode. Thank you. Welcome to the Pop Cult Pod. It is a DC Fandome special. Just the way we like it. We're going to go beyond the Fandome. God, I love that name. Just so dramatic. The Fandome. Hey, if you're listening to this and you're like, what the hell is a fandom? Is that some sort of building where they sell fans? No. That's our sponsor today, Dan's Fan City, where you can go for all your fan needs. Big fans, small fans, ceiling fans, wall fans, floor fans. Dan's Fan City. I don't even know what that was. Right. What are we doing here today? We're talking about DC Fandome. If you're just tuning in thinking, hey, this is a regular episode, what the hell is DC Fandome? So, this was basically an online convention solely dedicated to DC properties. Obviously, they have comics, but to a lesser degree with the focus. TV shows, we're not going to really look at TV shows. They had a Flash panel, they had a Titans panel. I don't really watch either of those shows, and I don't think there was anything major. I think like Red Hood and Scarecrow are maybe going to be in Titans, so there you go, that's that news covered. The rest of it's going to be the focus on the big reveals, the big news, which was, of course, the movies and, to a lesser extent, the video games. So we're going to break it all down. Not going to do much else in this episode. Not going to look at other trailers, other news. Try cover that maybe in the next episode if it's worth catching up on. I am going to do the Blockbuster Showdown still. This week we're looking at 2005, 2009. There's some DC films in there. Ooh, which one? It's Dark Knight. So that's what we're going to do. All DC, all the time. Let's get into it. First of all, just before we get started, I want to say this was excellent. This was just, we give DC a lot of shit sometimes. They knocked it out of the park here. This is, if you ask me, like the standard bearer for an online convention. They just really, really nailed it, and they managed to do things that like a couple weeks back we had Comic-Con at home, which was just a disaster. It was a flop. No one watched it. Didn't have any traction. This was like they engaged with the fan base. They actually showed some big reveals. It's not the sort of thing I don't know if you could do this like every year, because there's some films that like are ready to go. Like Marvel couldn't barely do one. They could promote Black Widow, Eternals, and the odd thing. It's something you can only do every now and then. But the big question from this is, of course, since we're comparing this to Comic-Con, is there a chance that something like this could replace Comic-Cons for the major crowds? And I think it easily could. Whether or not that footage is going to be like, in general, they'll put all the footage of the panels online, I don't know. That's kind of what Comic-Con kind of turns people off, because if you don't go to Comic-Con, you don't see the footage generally, or you don't see it for a long, long time. So, I don't know. Maybe something like this could replace Comic-Con. Maybe it could change the way we look at things. We will have to just see. But we will, of course, look at what we got out of this, which was a hell of a lot, to be honest. We had trailers, pictures, movies, updates on some big properties, and we're going to get started with a panel that I think kind of got the short end of the stick, unfortunately, just by virtue of the fact that it is coming out so soon, and we basically should have seen it by now, and that was Wonder Woman 84, which, if you can see behind me if you're watching the video, I will say this: if you don't watch the video, of course, whatever way you engage with us, thank you for doing so. But this is where the video is going to kind of pay dividends, because I'll be talking about posters, talking about footage, and it's going to all be behind me. So that's why it's well worth going with the video now. So behind me at the moment I have Wonder Woman's new banner, which is stunning. They're really doubling down the kind of Technicolor, old school kind of 80s imagery. It features Wonder Woman in her Golden Eagle armor. I normally don't really show posters because, how much can you get out of a poster? I've already run out of what to say. I've said what's on the poster. Wow, what amazing piece of content that was. The reason I bring it up is actually for some other reason. And it's not what's on the poster, it's what's not on the poster. Dun dun dun. How very dramatic of you, Tom. So, what is not on this poster, and what is also not on the next poster, which I'm going to show. Well, I guess one's a banner, one's a poster if you want to get technical, but, let's not get technical, because technical stuff is kind of boring, isn't it? There's the other poster, again, Golden Eagle armor flying. The big difference that we're not seeing on these posters is a release date. Dun, dun, dun. This is meant to come out in about 5 weeks, first week of October 2nd. It's probably about time that you just shout about your release date if you're going to hit that release date. And they're not. Which is kind of surprising, sort of, but also not entirely surprising. We have to remember the big film that's going to save cinema, the big movie that's going to, hit the multiplexes when nothing else is Tenet, a Warner Brothers release. Wonder Woman is also a Warner Brothers release. Is there a chance they're seeing the writing on the wall with Tenet and thinking, yeah, this isn't going to necessarily do well. We don't have confidence in this strategy. We should delay Wonder Woman. I think there's a good chance Wonder Woman isn't making this date. Whether or not they're going to just do a wait and see. Maybe Tenet will come out and be a massive success. I don't think it will be, personally. But I think there is a chance that Wonder Woman could get delayed further. The problem is, like, with a film like Wonder Woman right now, it really is just suffering in that we have seen a good bit of it from trailers compared to a lot of the other ones. And of course, it's a movie we should have seen by now. And as a result, you can't really knock our socks off because we've seen enough of it to the point where what can you really show us? So I'm going to show the trailer behind me at the moment. It's a fine trailer. It's a good trailer, but I mean, out of all the other ones that came out this weekend, it's the least memorable because we've seen, like, this is what, our second or third going to look at Wonder Woman 84. If you ask me, they had one card they could play that would get people talking. And they kind of didn't fully commit to it. They kind of fumbled it. And as a result, this didn't get a lot of traction. So, as I was saying, the big card they could have played was the reveal of Kristen Wiig's Cheetah, or Barbara Minerva, as he's known as her alter ego. Here's the thing. They kind of did, but it wasn't a substantial enough look that it turned heads. And I don't know I don't know if this would have changed anything. Maybe if they could have put a great reveal there, it mightn't have changed anything anyway, but it didn't really get people talking, to be honest. The kind of problem you have at this point, as I said, is Wonder Woman. We've had so much of Wonder Woman now that, like, what can you even show us that's going to change our opinion? That's going to say, hey, we want to get out there, we want to see this movie, we're excited for this movie, because we were already excited for it, and we didn't get to see it then. So, what are you going to show us now that's going to change anything? Especially when you don't have the confidence to give us a release date, which is a problem. Patty Jenkins was asked, is this going to come out? She kind of just said soon, whatever that means. There were some good moments there. Just behind me there, we had the moment kind of on a highway where there's tanks involved. Got a real kind of Last Crusade vibe from that. We have Wonder Woman swinging from, like, clouds and swinging from lightning, but again, we've seen that as well. We have what presumably is going to be the invisible jet. Again, we saw all these in the second trailer. This is kind of very much feels like a repeat. Now, as far as Cheetah, what we do get out of that is that we're kind of getting the trajectory. It really looks like we're getting the trajectory that came from Batman Forever, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, those great movies where she's a kind of nerdy, put upon character that's obsessed with Wonder Woman. Then she takes something. I mean, I think it's a magic stone based on some of the other footage we've seen. And because of that, she's like, I want to be a superpowered fucking cheetah or whatever. And then, it all goes wrong. So we get a look at her first. She's kind of like, the kind of nerdy, obsessive character. Then she's sort of humanoid, but she seemingly has cheetah powers. And then, fully formed, she seems to be a feral kind of cheetah woman. I'll put it behind me now if you're watching the video. And the problem with this is, very simply, the look they gave us wasn't satisfying. And I don't know why they chose this. I was kind of waiting on the post-title screen, where normally it's like a big reveal. Instead, we got it during the trailer. It was dark. It was kind of blurry. We got a few shots of it, but it wasn't really clear. Now, here's the thing. People are shitting on this design. I don't think it's that bad. I've sort of heard some people say, it's cats all over again, which the difference is that cats were meant to look like cats. I mean, they failed disastrously, kind of. Whereas this is kind of meant to look a bit messed up because it's a woman that was kind of where the transformation sort of went wrong. is my understanding. So it does look a bit like that. But it doesn't show great confidence in your design that you didn't reveal a proper look. Now, again, they want to say, like, it seems like doing what they did doesn't satisfy anyone, because you either give away a full look and people are like, oh, hey, that was a terrible design, but at least we know what we're dealing with. Or if they wanted it to be impactful, like at the moment, don't show anything at all. So they kind of got a weird middle ground where we saw the design, but it wasn't a great looking design. So it's lost the impact of showing us it in its full glory. And also, now we're just not even sure, is it good or not? It was fine. I've seen they've released some toys and stuff like that where it actually looks pretty serviceable, but this isn't going to sway anyone, and that's a problem. What else is in the trailer? Nothing really. Chris Pine tries to do his Jerry Seinfeld thing, where he's like, what's the deal with parachute pants or parachute a scenario? Fuck off, Chris Pine. What are you doing? Okay, what is this about? Okay, stop. Why did you put a weird comedy? Stop working on your tight five. Unless you said, hey, I'm back and I'm doing stand up. We don't need your comedic observations, Chris Pine. You perfect man. Oh, well, they kind of brought it around there to be nice to him at the end, didn't they? So that's all I'd say about the Wonder Woman panel. There really wasn't much there. They had a lot of fans, and that was a good thing overall. At DC Fandome, fans were able to ask questions. That was something that Comic-Con kind of got criticized for. At the time, because it was like, hey, it's about the fans, and where are the fans, and fans don't get to ask questions. Hey, it's all about us fans. It was grand. The fans didn't all the questions were really kind of ass kissy in general. There wasn't any question where I was like, ooh, because obviously they're able to vet these questions way more now than if they were actually at a convention. It was really just kind of like, you're so amazing and inspiring as Wonder Woman. What inspires you? Shit like that, Yeah, nothing else to say. I think the big note here is the story of the big piece of news is what they're not saying, which is a release date. So aside from that, it was fine. Yeah, I feel bad for the movie to a certain degree, because there's really no way they could have won. It was a kind of Kobayashi Maru, because we've seen enough of the movie where it's hard to get us excited with something, especially when it looked like so much of what we've seen already. Which brought us to the next panel. I'm going to do these in order, but of course, if you want to skip, there's time codes in the description. We got a trailer and we got more details on Gotham Knight, which is the game that Warner Brothers Montreal is working on. So, if you're not aware of the history, there's Rocksteady Games, who made the Arkham series, and there's Warner Brothers Games Montreal. So, Rocksteady made Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, and then in between Arkham City and their final entry, Arkham Knight, Warner Bros. Montreal made Batman Arkham Origins, which is sort of the black sheep of the series. It's actually a decent game. I actually really like the story of that game as well. But it kind of got torn apart. And the big question after that has been what are they going to do? We heard all sorts of rumors. It feels like the Batman and the Arkham games and the DC license has been in the air for these for a while. We've heard a multitude of rumors from both studios. Now, we'll get to what Rocksteady are working on a bit later on. But Montreal, everyone kind of was expecting a Batman game. And they kind of haven't done anything to dissuade that notion. And we did get a Batman game, sort of, but it's a Batman game without Batman. It's got the Gotham Knights. It's about the Bat family. So what we got here, we got two things. We have, and I'll show it first, we have the reveal trailer. And it was a pretty decent trailer. I think, I don't think either of these games blew anyone away. To be honest, I was surprised that I was more excited probably by this game than I was with Rocksteady's reveal, but we'll get to that in a sec. So what do we have here? We have a game featuring the Bat family, and seemingly Batman is dead. I mean, Batman is always dead, and he's always grand, so I wouldn't worry about it. But he's seemingly dead, and in his stead, the rest of the Bat family have to step up, being Nightwing, Red Hood, Batgirl, and Robin. Robin is Tim Drake in this. There was a lot of confusion. Some people thought it was Damian Wayne. It's Tim Drake. And it's seemingly, just you can choose those characters. I don't know. They didn't really go into, I don't think you can, whether you can just choose any character in the loadout. My theory is that, they mentioned the Belfry, which is generally the home of the Bat family. It was designed by Tim Drake. I think that could be your loadout screen. I don't know. I don't know if you can change between these characters in game. Or maybe it'll be kind of a GTA kind of thing where they might be somewhere in the world and you can change them and then go to that mission as that character. I don't know. They did say that basically you can play it as solo or two-player co-op. I don't think they confirmed whether it was online co-op. I would be shocked if there wasn't. You could play online with your friend. I wouldn't want to play it with just some randomer online. That would be a disaster. And you can play as all the characters. They each have their own kind of style. They didn't go too much into that. Aside from this reveal trailer, they did 7 minutes of gameplay that was mostly seeing Batgirl play and a little bit of Robin, but not much. Aside from that, our villains that we've seen confirmed, Mr. Freeze is in it. We got to see a bit of Barbara Gordon's mission with Mr. Freeze, and it looked pretty good. They didn't really give us much of the actual boss battle, and also the big reveal at the end of the trailer, which is something we kind of had rumored and heard about a lot, was the Court of Owls. Now, the question is it advisable to do the Court of Owls in a story without Batman? I don't know, but I do think maybe based on that, I wonder, is Batman even alive? I don't know. I think he probably is alive if you're doing the Court of Owls story. That's kind of what it hints to me, because I think the Batman story is much more interesting with Batman and the kind of Wayne legacy. So maybe he's infiltrated the Court of Owls. Maybe he's faked his death to infiltrate them. I don't know. But I mean, I don't think he's dead. Batman is always dead, and he's always alive, you know. So aside from that, it's not set in the Arkhamverse. They were very kind of cagey about these mentions in general. I don't believe it's set in the Arkhamverse. There's kind of contradictions here that makes me kind of figure that's the case anyway. The gameplay wise, as we said, it's solo with optional 2-player co-op. I'm glad you can just play it solo, because I kind of just like playing it solo at this point. Those kind of co-op games, like, they're great to have an option, but I don't like when you have to do that, you know. Aside from that, vehicles were confirmed. We saw Barbara Gordon using her Batcycle. Red Hood has a motorbike in the trailer as well. Look, every Bat person in the Bat family has a bike. That's what it is. They all have bikes. It doesn't matter. They all have bikes. Okay, let's just assume that's the case. Which is kind of a weird thing to double down on, because one of the big complaints people had about Batman Arkham Knight was that they was an over-reliance on the Batmobile. So, kind of surprised that they're kind of, you know, putting so much emphasis on that in the trailer and things in general. But, you know, I'm sure it could work. What they showed in the gameplay trailer with Batgirl and the Batcycle actually looked pretty cool, so I could see that totally working. Everyone has their own kind of abilities. They didn't go into this in too much detail. We do know that Robin can teleport short distances using the Justice League satellite. We have the Court of Owls reveal behind me in the video there, which it looks fantastic. It's really, really good reveal. But again, whether or not I assume they're the main focus of the game, to be honest. That was kind of the vibe I got. They had this kind of countdown thing before this where they were filling in circles. One of them was the Court of Owls, but I don't think they filled out anything else, so I don't know. Beyond that, we don't know anyone else's kind of unique ability. They kind of mentioned Barbara Gordon's, but it wasn't really clear. It just seemed like, hey, she can kind of sneak and stuff, do stuff like Batman. So I'm like, okay. As far as the combat of it goes, it looks a lot more arcadey than the Arkham series, but the combat does look relatively similar, if again a bit more arcadey. There does seem to be a few more RPG elements. We have experience and levels and that kind of thing. We saw the footage I showed was an alpha build, so it was pretty early on. It looked like a very stripped down heads up display, not a lot of details on screen. Maybe that's just the alpha build. I'm sure it could get elaborated on beforehand. Hopefully not. I kind of like when it's kind of sleek and stripped down, you know. That's kind of it. You know, we have grapple hooks for Batgirl. I don't think that's going to be a unique feature, to be honest, but I kind of actually, it was weird because I saw the trailer and I was like, okay, fine. It was fine. But the gameplay trailer did kind of swing me. I did like the idea. They show kind of a moment where kind of Robin just drops into the gameplay and you kind of approach things from a different way. But I mean, it didn't look that distinguishable. And I do wonder if that's going to be an issue, how to really distinguish between characters, whether there's even a point, or will you just end up playing the whole game as one character. But we'll have to see how that goes. Not a lot of details aside from that. It's coming out in 2021. No firm date outside of that. Seems like pretty late in the game to announce a release date for next year, so it could get delayed. That's kind of seemingly the way all these video games go. But yeah, next gen. I wonder if we could see it coming to older generation consoles, because of course, like older generation like PS4 and stuff. It's weird we're calling that older generation when the new generation hasn't started, but there we go. That was kind of it for the Warner Brothers Games Montreal panel. A good panel. An exciting game. I do think if you do have an interest or you're undecided, check out the gameplay. That was like about 7 minutes. That did swing me. I did think it looked decent, but again, it's not what a lot of people expected. I think people wanted kind of a darker Arkham game. This certainly isn't that. And Rocksteady's game wouldn't be that either. So I think that's kind of split people's opinion. The next panel that we got then of interest was the Flash panel. Now, I will say I brushed over a small panel there that I do want to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it in conjunction with the Flash panel. So there was a panel on the DC multiverse, and I'll admit I went to have my dinner when this happened, so I kind of only kept it on in the background. I assumed it was actually going to be something to do with comics. And I guess it kind of did, but it was really like, hey, multiverse is important to us in the films going forward. That was really what we took away from this. Primarily, they kind of said, hey, Matt Reeves' Batman one does not take place in the same universe as the Justice League or any of the stuff, which we kind of knew already, but it was confirmed here officially. It takes place on Earth 2. I don't know if they specifically meant it actually is in canon named Earth 2, or is it just it's not in the same universe and they used Earth 2 as an example. The idea they said with it was basically it allows Matt Reeves to kind of build out his Gotham, which it seems like they're doing a lot of. This movie seems like there's going to have sequels. We have already a TV series, rumors of another TV series, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got some spin-offs as well. So this is kind of in a kind of spin-off universe, I guess. We're going to have two Batmen, and they go, well, more than two Batmen, actually, as I get to in a minute. Walter Hamada, the head of DC, said those are things that we can discuss because we don't have to worry about how it would impact Aquaman 2 or The Flash because it's all just part of the multiverse. So that was kind of his explanation of why they can talk about the multiverse and why Batman isn't a separate one, because they can basically say, hey, this isn't going to affect any of the other films. There's one Earth of this beginning Justice League, and there's another Earth where there's this growing year 2 Batman. So aka Batman is in a separate universe. He also kind of mentioned that Joker takes place in a separate universe. We don't know if that's the same universe as Robert Pattinson's Batman. I don't think it was confirmed where it was. It was just, it's a separate universe. And that's another thing. They also obviously hinted a lot at the TV stuff being in a separate universe, but the possibility that they can cross over, which happened in The Flash. I don't watch Flash TV series, but Ezra Miller appeared as the cinematic Flash in that one, which they discussed a little bit at the Flash panel, and basically, hey, these all exist in a loose kind of multiverse universe. And that is how actually apparently the cinematic Flash got his name from the TV Flash. He mentioned Flash and he was like, oh yeah, I was just called the Streaker or whatever the fuck. He also very specifically mentioned, and I found this interesting because it was kind of weird to just bring it up and debunk it immediately, but they confirmed they're not doing Red Sun as one of the multiverse properties. If you don't know, Red Sun is like a alternate Elseworld story. Elseworld story is just, doesn't take place inside continuity of DC Universe. Where Superman, instead of landing in America, lands in Soviet Russia, and he becomes kind of a Soviet asset. Yeah, I'm not surprised they're not doing that. That's a pretty big leap. I mean, they barely got Superman right now. All of a sudden, they're like, hey, Russian Superman. I don't think that, but they did say they were taking kind of ideas from filmmakers about other ideas within that kind of universe, much in the way they had Joker. So that was the kind of multiverse panel. Not much to come out of it, but just kind of interesting to see what their approaches. It actually is weird because it feels like for the first time in a while DC kind of have a vision, but their vision is basically whatever. Their vision is like, we have a multiverse where we can just do anything, but also we have kind of a continuity over here. So it's kind of having their cake and eating it too, which I think works. And I will say on that multiverse front, there's an interesting kind of silent race brewing between Marvel and DC that no one's really talking about yet, because of course, DC are talking up their multiverse, but Warner Brothers, of course, with their DC properties, are going to launch the multiverse kind of officially on the big screen with Flash and Flashpoint in 2022. Also in 2022, Marvel are bringing out Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So which one's going to get there first? I don't think it matters anyway. I think DC is probably more important to them because, they want to try to explain a kind of cohesive kind of vision for their universe, whereas Marvel can just be like, it's the MCU, but also there's weird shit going on somewhere outside the MCU, but now it's in the MCU because we acknowledge it. So it's not that big a deal, really. The Flash panel was weird, man. Mainly because it felt like it really didn't need a panel. because there's not anything happening on it yet. This is probably one of 2 useless panels on the whole thing, but I guess they just wanted to be like, hey, something's working, we're doing something over here. First of all, it was kind of weird. I don't know what I expected them to say. I didn't expect them to address it. Ezra Miller is, of course, the Flash. He was on a couple of these panels. Last we heard of Ezra Miller, he seemingly choked a fan to the ground, and it was never acknowledged by anyone. And it was just like, okay, they're not going to mention it at all. I guess they're just hoping that it'll all kind of die down. So I guess that's that. A lot of people wanted rid of him anyway because he wasn't a great Flash, if we're honest. But I think, with the right writer and director, that can change. But yeah, I mean, apparently he might have choked a woman, allegedly, and gotten away with it. But I say allegedly. We saw the footage. It certainly looked and seemingly was him. But I guess if they want us to forget it, that's that. And that was the right time for a scandal to break, man, because the scandal broke during a pandemic, so it's not like we can just be going up to Ezra Miller or whatever weird fashion show he's at and be like, hey, did you choke that woman? Now we just have to go up to his door. You'd have to knock on his door and be like, Ezra, did you choke that woman? And that would be awkward. I mean, you might actually come off worse in that situation. He could be like, yeah, I choked that woman, but you just hopped over my gate and now you knocked on my door and you're harassing me, so... Even Stevens, and then, yeah, we missed our one chance to get him. You blew it by confronting him so weirdly. Shame on you. Okay, so the Flash panel, as I said, was weird. Weirder than that segue. I don't know what the hell that was. Because we have the director, Andy Muschietti, who, of course, did the It movies, who just looked delighted to not have been fired yet, seemingly. Not a lot was revealed about any of this stuff. It was kind of like a weird, like, hey, did you know the Flash is this and that? And it's like, yeah, that's probably stuff you should give us in the movie. But instead of doing a kind of Flash origin movie, you're seemingly just going to the immediate like reset button that the Flash is. So that's weird. They showed concept art of 2 things. The one behind me at the moment is Flash's new suit, which looks very good, very classic comic booky. Interestingly, they said it was made by a Batman. But who? Because we got news this week that Ben Affleck is going to return in the Flash movie as Batman, which is good. I feel so bad for Batman. Not for Batman. I feel so bad for Ben Affleck because he was a good Batman, but I don't think he ever got the right material. And now he was obviously in a rough place, kind of coming to the end of his first tenure with DC. And now he's kind of getting a chance to do it again because he seems to be in a much better place. So good on him. This is apparently going to write off Batman, but who knows? I mean, the thing is, like, once you introduce time travel and a multiverse, it's like the consequences are kind of gone out the window anyway. You could just go to some other universe and grab Ben Affleck as Batman. Who gives a shit, really? Most interestingly is, of course, what was rumored recently and seemingly more or less confirmed by this concept art, although I don't think they officially said it, was that Michael Keaton is going to return as Batman in the Flash movie. That's seemingly in the art. It looks a lot like Keaton. It looks like Keaton, like, as he was then. So I don't think they're going to go back to like the 90s when Keaton was young and de-age him. I assume it's just concept art to prove a point and he will be somewhat older. Great. I'm glad to see Keaton as Batman. He was a fantastic Batman. But it sure does seem weird that like this Batman in continuity at the moment, and obviously they can change this whatever way they need it to. It's like, yeah, I went from fighting like weirdos that like were abandoned and lived in the sewer and to like time travel and super speedy people. That was the original name for Flash, super speedy person. Yeah, it's just a bit odd. I still do not like the idea that the Flash movie is just, hey, it's everything, man. It's a Flash movie and it's time travel. It's resetting the universe and introducing the multiverse and there's how many Batman in it? It's like, how about just giving us a Flash movie first? It doesn't seem like that would be that hard. But regardless, that was the Flash panel. Again, one of the more useless panels, in my opinion. It just was a very, very kind of pointless panel because they didn't give us much. I mean, they don't have much to give us anyway, but it was basically just, this time it's happening. We swear. We know we've had like 6 different directors. This time it's happening. It's happening. It's happening with Ezra Miller. And people were like, boo. And they're like, hey, it's okay. It's going to happen with Ezra Miller. And people, I guess they're just hoping people will forget it. So there you go. We had the next panel, which was very fantastic. Would have been my most favorite. It would have been my most favorite panel It would have been my favorite panel had it not been for the Batman panel and trailer that, of course, kind of took over the world. But it was for James Gunn's Suicide Squad, which we got. It was interesting, actually. I wonder if, like, they put out a lot of trailers this weekend, of course, and maybe they were like, maybe they just figured everything would be kind of lost after the Batman trailer, so they didn't put out a regular trailer. But they put out a cast call, a kind of a roll call of the cast, which is good because the cast is massive. I mean, this was basically like a hot mess of a panel because there was like 20 people there. It was like, you know, when you're on a Zoom meeting and everyone's just talking and you're like, I don't know what I'm meant to be listening to. Why is everyone talking? This is a mess. It was like that. It was like a drunk Christmas. But it was fun, you know. Basically, the footage was the highlight. This is the first thing we had, the roll call. So we got confirmation of quite a few people here that we're going to go through now. So I'm going to name who's who, and I'm going to say whether I think they live or die. So we had, returning, first of all, we have Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, and Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang. I think Captain Boomerang is going to die, personally. Just feels like, how much can you really say with that character? I think they want to also kill off someone that came from the previous movie, just to be like, see, nobody is off limits. I don't think it's Rick Flag. There's more of him in the trailer than I would expect. And I think that you want to kind of have that kind of straight man leader. And, you know, Captain Boomerang, I think there's another character here that kind of feels like doubling up on that character. So maybe, I don't know. Michael Rooker is playing Savant. So I'll tell you who these characters are. And I'll tell you what they can do and whether or not they're going to live or die. So I think out of the original ones, it's just going to be Captain Boomerang. Possibly Rick Flag. I don't think they're going to kill Harley Quinn. I think there's just a lot of potential there, so who knows. And Amanda Waller, I mean, why would you bother killing her? That's kind of pointless. Michael Rooker is Savant. Savant is a genius. He was a blackmailer who actually in the New 52 run, he betrays the Suicide Squad. So maybe that's going to happen here. Although James Gunn is very much inspired by the John Ostrander run from the 80s, I believe it is. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that he's James Gunn, like, toy, again, James Gunn, good luck charm. I think he could last for a while, but I don't know. I don't know if he's going to live to the end. Savant is actually, I think he was meant to be a vigilante first, but then he was like, his methods were kind of turned him away from it. Batman hated him or some shit. I don't know. But yeah, I think he'll probably live, at a guess. We have Flula Borg as Javelin. This is a former Olympian, basically as Captain Boomerang. The way Captain Boomerang is with Boomerang's Javelin guy, Javelin is with javelins, you know. They didn't even bother giving him a decent name. They were like, what do we call the guy who likes javelins? Javelin, that'll do. I mean, not even Captain Javelin, not even Mr. Javelin, just Javelin. Ugh, lazy. Yeah, he's going to die. I mean, let's be honest, he doesn't stand a chance. I just don't think he has a chance. There's actually a moment in the trailer as well where I saw another character holding a javelin with my eagle eye. So I think Javelin's a goner. What a loss that is. David Dastalmachian, who you've probably seen in Ant-Man and the Wasp and Dark Knight. He is Polka Dot Man, who has a kind of a gimmick costume with polka dots that have various abilities. You know, he has one that's like kind of a black hole and, you know, explosives and that kind of thing. Now, interestingly, in one of the behind the scenes bit of footage, it looked like they were like, obviously he had a suit full of polka dots. It looked like the polka dots were coming out of his skin, which I could kind of see kind of a dark, kind of disgusting adaptation that James Gunn might do. Because this actually, it's kind of weird. This feels like you've got it's obviously the obvious comparison to this is Guardians, because, you know, it's a group of superheroes, but it's going for that R rating. It's weirder, it's darker, it's more violent, and because of that, you kind of have the deconstructionist take that he had in Super, but Super again was super grounded. So you kind of have a weird mixture of his films here, I think, and even probably some of the grosser elements you could probably compare it to Slither, maybe, but that might be a stretch. Polka Dot Man, I think actually Polka Dot Man is going to be. I think he could live. I think he could be a big. I feel like that's such a weird character you can do a lot with. Ratcatcher 2 is the next character, played by Daniela Melchior. A lot of people kind of jumped over to just call her Ratcatcher. She is specifically Ratcatcher 2. She has a cool kind of orange, like fly-looking kind of costume on. If you look at the trailer, there's a moment in it where there's a little girl with Ratcatcher. I'm assuming that's a flashback and that Ratcatcher 1 is the Ratcatcher in that scene. And, well, I don't think he was called Ratcatcher 1 then. That would have been a bit like, I'm Ratcatcher 1 because I'm going to die and you're going to carry on my legacy. That would be a bit on the nose. That'd be like if they called the Great War. Just it's World War One. Why World War One? There's going to be a 2? Yeah, sequelize. Yeah, it's like Ratcatcher 2. I actually think they're going to do a lot with this character. She seems to be in a lot of the footage. She has a gas gun. She has control over Rats. Sorry, it's Sean Connery's 90th birthday this week, so I threw that Easter egg in from. That's for you, Sean. I know you're a big fan. Ratcatcher 2, I think will live, actually. Surprisingly. Then we have Idris Elba playing Bloodsport. Weaponry and guns, that's kind of his big thing. A lot of people kind of thought this was going to be Bronze Tiger. Some people at one stage thought it was going to be kind of like Deadshot, or it would have he's basically occupying the role that Deadshot would have had. Yeah, I guess, kind of. I mean, I think they're different enough relatively, but a lot of the characters here just kind of rely on guns, and you want to break that up. But Idris Elba's a big name actor, so I assume he will live. Interestingly, he is in prison for shooting Superman with a kryptonite bullet like he did in the comics, so again, it feels really weird. It feels like there's some really exciting shit going on with Superman just off screen. Like, so far with Superman and DC, it's been like, hey, we had that movie where he was just miserable, hated being Superman, and just kind of a bit of a nutcase. Then we had that movie where he was a nutcase, but he was in the movie less, so it seemed like he was less of a nutcase, and Batman was also a nutcase in that film, so he seemed like less of a nutcase again. Then he was dead, and had a weird digital face when he came back, and was Superman very briefly, and then we never saw him again. Except we saw him in Shazam. Well, sorry, we saw him from the neck down in Shazam, so sounds like there's been exciting stuff going on. He's getting shot with kryptonite bullets. Yeah, wow. Wouldn't that be something cool to see on screen? I guess not. Like all this weird shit, and they can't make a good Superman movie. Like, come on, man. King Shark is the other one. I think Bloodsport probably will live, to be honest. I mean, assumingly, if you cast Idris Elba, you want to do something with him. But again, that could be a misdirect as well. King Shark. This is an interesting one because we didn't actually find out the whole story here. We know the reference person standing is going to be Steve Agee, who's also playing a character called John Economos, who's just like a kind of a suit, I think. Steve Agee is standing in here. Now, I don't know where this came from, but there was some people on Twitter being like, oh, wow, James Gunn is going all out. A practical shark. That's not a fucking practical shark, you idiot. Why? No, it's not. Why would they have a practical shark? Like, what? Like it's going to look like Jaws? No. There's clearly a moment anyway where he's got a big load of padding and a kind of frame around him for digital shots anyway. So yeah, clearly not practical. I don't know why that caught on Twitter, but it did. So the big thing here is we obviously don't know who's voicing him, and they didn't reveal that at all. Like all of them were like cast and who was playing them. King Shark, we just got a very brief look at him, and he looked lovely. He was just kind of like a nice kind of wave. I don't know who's going to voice him. The big question mark is Taika Waititi, because Taika Waititi is mentioned in the cast list at the end. We obviously knew he was in the film. We don't know who he is or what he's involved. Is it a voice role? Is he voicing King Shark? But then again, is that kind of a bit like Korg in the MCU? Could he be voicing the villain? The rumor going around is that the villain might be Starro the Conqueror. Starro the Conqueror is like just basically a massive alien starfish. Who, rather embarrassingly, if you don't think he's much of a villain, was the first villain the Justice League ever fought in their first appearance. A giant alien starfish. So that's the rumor. That's not confirmed, but that could be a cool idea. The one reason I'm like, really, are they going to do that? Is that Starro basically asexually clones himself into smaller versions, and those things latch onto people's face. So we have mind control. We had a bit of mind control in the last one, so it's like a bit of a double beat there. I don't know if you're going to do that. We'll see though. It does feel like a kind of villain, that weird kind of character that James Gunn might gravitate towards, but there you go. We have Mei Ling Ng as Mong Gal. Strength and stamina. She's a goner. She's not going to live. She's dead. She's going to be the first one against the wall, I'd say. Peter Capaldi, the Thinker. He wasn't in a lot of the footage, but what we saw of him was really cool. He's like, just looks old school Frankenstein. He's just got a load of bolts stuck in his head. In some versions, he has telekinesis and mind control. I think he's going to live. I don't know. See, the thing is as well, it depends on when you look at the footage, what part of the movie you think it is. There's a moment kind of at the end where we have a big kind of lineup. I think there's like 9 guys lined up. Maybe that's the final lineup. In which case, I think Capaldi is in that lineup. There's one character in that lineup that we don't know who it is at all. It looks like a guy called Julio Ruiz. Big kind of chunky guy. My first thought was Calendar Man, but I have no idea. He wasn't mentioned at all. And again, that could be at the start of the movie. We don't entirely know. We have Elise Braga. I know it says Alice, apparently it's pronounced Elise, who's playing Sol Soria, which we don't know who that is. a lot of people assume it's going to be a gender swapped version of Juan Soria, who was like a mercenary character who has cybernetic enhancements. Yeah, it could be. The art didn't really give that away. I don't know if she's going to last very long. It just kind of feels like, do you really need that kind of soldiery character when you already have Rick Flag? I don't know. We'll see. Pete Davidson is playing Blackguard. Very odd one, this one. So Blackguard is like, he's kind of part of a crime organization called the 1000 in the comics. He's got energy-based weapons like swords and shields and stuff. They really leant hard into the guns though with him. Like, it was like guns behind him. His name was on a bullet. He was holding guns. So I don't know if this character is going to be anything like the version in the comics, to be honest. Maybe it's just like kind of they just took the name and they liked it. I don't think this guy's going to live very long anyway. I think he's going to die pretty quickly. But there you go. Nathan Fillion, this is this is a character I just love, is in the film. So we have a character called TDK, which when you see those initials in DC context, you think, the Dark Knight? No, it's not the Dark Knight. Apparently it stands for the Detachable Kid. I read that, I don't know how accurate that is, but certainly it feels like he's playing a character called Arm Fall Off Boy. A lot of people have said, like, hey, the costume looks familiar. If you actually look at like, everyone has their own little emblem. If you look at his emblem, the arms are cut off. So he is Arm Fall Off Boy, basically, which is a character that can, like, take off their arms and use them as weapons. Basically, he takes his arm off and clubs you with it. Just an awesome character, man. He's not going to live very long. He's a goner, let's be honest. But it's a fun character to play with. He'll get some memorable moments, I'm sure. Again, he's going to die. But still, I'm sure he'll have some memorable moments. Sean Gunn is playing Weasel, who seemingly is just a humanoid weasel. There is a character called Weasel in the comics. He does have a costume, but the costume looks so much like a weasel that I don't know, is this a costume or is it an animal? This one certainly seems more animalistic, so it's one where he's just licking glass. His character, the photo of him is awesome. He just looks like a fucked up version of like something you see in Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox. His eyes are just all over the place. Sean Gunn is kind of doing the mocap for him. I'm possibly doing the voice. I assume he is. But there you go. Agility and hand-to-hand combat, that's his deal. Again, he'd probably... I could see him living, though. James Gunn likes kind of these weird, like, anthropomorphic characters, so maybe he could live. I don't know. John Cena is playing Peacemaker. Peacemaker is like this total, brick shithouse of a character. His goal is to get peace at any means, so he'll kill people to get peace. You idiot, that's a contradiction. Ugh. Yeah, combat and guns are his thing. That's the problem, I think, with some of this light up. Some of them are just like, guns, I've got guns and I'm going to shoot somebody. That's all they do. Which makes me think some of these characters are going to have to die. And some of the weirder ones I actually think are going to die as well, so I don't know. He was basically described by John Cena as a douchey Captain America, which seems about right. It does look like he gets a lot of attention actually in the behind the scenes video, which I'll play now. So I do kind of wonder if maybe he's going to be, if not the leader, kind of a de facto leader. There is seemingly a moment in the trailer where he's fighting with Rick Flag, so maybe there'll be a bit of a back and forth there about leadership. I don't know. I think those characters, I think Peacemaker will live. They promoted him a lot. Maybe that's a misdirect, but I think that's a character you can have a lot of fun with. And yeah, I don't know. Aside from that, solid lineup. A lot of people are going to die. Not surprising considering how big the cast is. But then we got the behind the scenes, which, the behind the scenes is excellent. Again, it's kind of odd they didn't have a trailer, but there's a few kind of things I want to point out in this behind the scenes. Some very interesting stuff here, actually. One of the things, first of all, is just taking in how big the sets are. They're just massive looking. They've described this as kind of a gritty war movie, and it certainly has that tone. There's some posters I'll show you in a sec that definitely scream kind of the Dirty Dozen, that kind of vibe. Which, I mean, they kind of try to emulate with the last one, but this one looks more accurate, and it looks like it's going all over the top. I mean, like, look at the costumes and stuff in this movie. It's like, they just don't hold back. They're kind of over the top, colourful and hilarious, and really campy. It's just perfect. A lot of explosions in this movie, and a lot of people have said it's kind of the biggest movie they ever worked on. I think they even said like the most effects, like even bigger than a Marvel movie, which it's kind of weird. James Gunn was like, really, like, I don't know, it kind of felt like there was a few digs at Marvel and Disney and Guardians in there, where he was like, this is the most fun I've ever had in a movie. This is the best cast I've ever worked with. I'm just imagining him showing up to like the first day of Guardians 3 and they're like, what the fuck? But I guess it's just PR talk. We'll have to see. It's so funny that this movie just came out of like him having like pedo jokes like 10 years ago. because of that he got a massive movie. Which, by the way, this movie does look fucking massive, like really expensive, and it looks like he just gets to run riot. And if this is R-rated, hopefully it does well, because it looks like it's pretty expensive. As I said, there's one where the roof comes down on Rick Flag. Don't think he's dead or anything, but I do wonder. I get the feeling that like he might have that moment where he sacrifices himself for the team and be like, "Hey, we're not so different." Blah blah blah. I don't know. That's just a kind of wild fan there. We have, of course, Polka Dot Man using his powers, blowing the dots on people seemingly. We have, what else do we have in this trailer? I'm just having a look as it plays behind me there. Some really cool stuff in it, actually. A lot of explosions, obviously. Seemingly, this is like just so crazy expensive from all this. We have King Shark eating a man. We have Harley dual wielding machine guns. And yeah, I'll say it again because I've said it twice already. Lots of explosions. Great first look. Really interesting to see. It's weird we didn't get a trailer, but you know, we're over a year away from this. Or well, it's coming out in August 2021. Or is it because everything's going to be delayed, and if Wonder Woman gets delayed, they might push everything back. So seemingly it's coming out in 2021. We'll have to see. We got 2 posters, as I mentioned there. I'll just line them both up so we could see them both at the same time. Wow, isn't technology amazing? So one of them was those cast emblems that we got in the kind of roll call trailer, and the other one was a real classic kind of 70s kind of, almost like something you'd see on her own movie poster, or even just like a cover of a book, you know, that kind of way. It was like a beautifully painted thing. He put out 2 versions of this poster, but it's really minor cosmetic differences. I think like some of the outfits are different, but that's kind of it. So those are the 2 posters we have there behind me on the video. Yeah, not much to say about them. Very kind of minimalist, really kind of showing off the comic booky side of this and the tone they're going for. Not a lot to go on from them, but this was a great panel. Got me very excited for a movie. Like, obviously I was excited for this movie, but it made me kind of go, this actually is something special, and he just can clearly get away with whatever. It feels like there's no holds barred, and that's pretty exciting to see. So the next one was something I was a bit less excited to see, but something that everyone else, or a lot of the world, was mad for, and that was the Snyder Cut. Dun dun dun. Or Zack Snyder's Justice League. Dun dun dun. I'm going to say one positive thing before I say the Snyder Cut. They're apparently working on a Static Shock movie. That was mentioned for like 2 seconds. So good, yay. Now let's talk about something I'm not as excited for. The Snyder Cut. This was the cringiest panel ever. I really don't like Zack Snyder panels. Are just so awkward now because it's just all these fans just kissing his ass, like cradling his balls as well. It's like, do you have a question? Yes, Zack, you're one of the most amazing people ever. You created cinema, and what's it like to be the best person ever? And he's like, well, thank you for your support and love. And you're like, oh, I feel sick. It was just all like, you know, you made me believe in cinema again. I'm so glad you get to complete your vision. I was like, yes, thank you for fighting. And you're like, oh God. Aside from that, what information we get about the Snyder Cut? Not a lot, really. The big detail is that it's coming out in 4 parts, 1 hour each, so it's a 4-hour film. He did say that eventually at the end they're going to have a way of like watching it all at once. Whether that means one cohesive edit, I don't know. Presumably. And internationally, he said they're working on a distribution plan. What that is, who knows? You know, they didn't give us any firm details. They just said like we're working on it. So, I mean, it comes out next year, so there's plenty of time to work on that. Yeah, that's kind of it as far as the actual panel itself. As I said, it was mostly just fans coming in and being like, it's great, and Zack Snyder being like, it's great, isn't it? Honestly, the most newsworthy thing aside from the big kind of thing was what happened on Twitter, where Zack Snyder took a shot at a journalist. A lot of this stuff leaked beforehand, and one of the trailer leaked, your man commented on it, and it was like something like, oh, you're commenting on a leaked trailer and you liked it because it was like a Saturday morning cartoon. Well, this isn't like that. This is a movie for grown-ups. Oh my God, it's a movie for grown-ups. It's just so try-hard. It's like, that's why we're making a big important film. It's like, get out of your own ass. It's just, I just found it's just so cringy, and his fans obviously ate it up. It's like, are you going to tell like kids watching Batman and Superman like kind of fight the bad guy? You're like, this is for grown-ups. It's like Zack Snyder just always feels like he's embarrassed to be making a superhero movie. I don't know. Anyway, I thought that was pretty cringe, but a lot of people seemingly did. We, of course, got a trailer for the Snyder Cut. Now, I have to double check what aspect ratio this is playing in. It's seemingly playing... Oh, it's not actually. It's playing in a different aspect ratio altogether. And that's one of the big talking points with this whole thing. Zack Snyder... this is the aspect ratio he wants to be seen in if you're watching the video. In a very odd aspect ratio. So if you watch it, you kind of notice a lot of empty space above people. And that is because of the aspect ratio choice. This is, if you thought this was born beforehand, wait till you hear us talking about aspect ratios. So he's showing it in 166:1, which is black bars on the side. Basically, it looks like 4:3, but it's a lot taller, so you're seeing a lot more above the characters and kind of a bit below them as well. Why is he doing this? This whole thing in general. No, why is he showing this aspect ratio? There's a few theories around this. It makes it look kind of taller and it's a bigger look. Probably the most notable film recently that came out in this was Marriage Story. Was shot in the exact same aspect ratio. Marriage Story, Justice League, Peas in a Pod, grown-up movies. It's often known as European widescreen, which I don't know. Is that still the case? Certainly was the old thing. A lot of people call it kind of an Academy ratio as well. I don't think he's putting this forward for Oscars. I hope not. Generally speaking, though, a lot of people are saying that this is closer to an IMAX ratio because it's IMAX ratios. Of course, screens are a lot taller. So I don't know. Is he hoping to get this an IMAX release? Maybe. But the other thing is now again you're messing with that director's cut again because this was obviously not the ratio it was ever going to be shown in. You know, obviously not because the trailer before this were not in this aspect ratio. But seemingly now he can run hog wild and do whatever he wants. As for the trailer itself, I'm going to, replay this in a stretched out aspect ratio. A more normal one, I guess. So, is the actual trailer any good? It's weird because as much as the trailer's a lot of hype and a lot of talk about it, the thing everyone is talking about is the choice of music. So he set this to Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, which Zack Snyder has a history with. In one of the most ridiculed sex scenes of all time in Watchmen, they play that, which is just the most awkward scene. And I guess it was meant to be awkward, but, And then you have the other thing of, why is he using this song? Now, I've heard a few different things. I heard it was his daughters who committed suicide, Autumn, unfortunately. Her favourite song, which also seems a bit weird for a couple of reasons. It's it's hard to imagine a teenage girl's favourite song being Leonard Cohen, Hallelujah, I don't know. But also, if that was the case, you used it in a sex scene, that's kind of weird. But I wonder as well, is it the big thing everyone is obviously jumping to is is he that pompous that he's that's right, I'm back. Hallelujah. Zack Snyder is here. Papa Snyder has returned. And then again, there's possibly some allusions in the lyrics to what actually happened with this whole thing of, I told the truth, I didn't mean to fool you, blah, blah, blah. It all went wrong and this kind of thing. So whether or not that's the case, I don't know. It's an odd choice in general for a trailer. And again, it's so weird to be this is a movie for grown-ups. Meanwhile, we got big CGI rubbery Darkseid clubbing people with an axe or whatever. Which we should say that this is our first look at Darkseid. I always say Darkseid because of the way it's spelled, but it's Darkseid. Again, a big grey man. All these DC villains are grey men. Doomsday was a grey man. Ares was basically a grey man because there was so much smoke. Steppenwolf was a grey man. Although now they've changed his design, he's a grey man with much more spikes and shiny metal. He looks like he's wearing a Transformer as a suit. We have Desaad, who's shown in this trailer. He looks like Corvus Glaive from Infinity War. He's a torturer for Darkseid. He also was a grey man. I actually liked his design more than the rest of them. It was just kind of pretty simple. I don't like the look of Darkseid. He just looks kind of weirdly rubbery. Of course, in the trailer, we also have the Hall of Justice has been destroyed. This is more the nightmare sequence, which we saw in Batman v Superman, which we always heard was going to get a bit more play in this, and seemingly is. Presumably, Flash is going to travel to this and see what the world is like, and come back and tell Bruce, and that'll be what happened in Batman v Superman that got everyone so confused. There's a Joker card as well when this Justice Hall of Justice is destroyed, which again makes me just kind of go that's just awkward fan service. Again, why is the Joker? I don't know. Maybe I'm fucking up my tier list here, right? But I would assume that if the world is taken over by Darkseid, Joker probably doesn't last long. Like like him just being like, oh, I'm gonna, kill people in Gotham, compared to I'm gonna take over and destroy the world, and Superman's gonna work for me. Yeah, a bit of a power imbalance there. I don't think the Joker is gonna have much to do in this apocalypse. But anyway, there you go. We some new footage, of course. There's a lot of new footage, to be fair, but I do kind of wonder as well. Like, the story beats seem the same, so is there really that big a difference? Is this going to make the movie any better, or is it just going to make it longer? Some of the footage just looks like alternate takes. I don't know. It feels like sometimes they're being deliberately like, hey, see, it's different. Which is hard to tell if that's going to make the movie any good. New footage includes black suit Superman, seemingly entering a Kryptonian building, probably after, being revived. He's also in his black suit at the end of the trailer, lining up with the rest of the Justice League, which is good, I guess. Again, I think people have a weird affinity for the black suit that it doesn't really deserve. But anyway, what else we got? Aquaman refusing a suit and armor. Presumably he's going to go on a big soul search and come back and get it later. Fine. Cyborg is obviously a big deal in this movie, as we keep hearing. He's the heart of the movie. He's in the trailer a lot. We get a moment where he's digging up a grave. Does not look like the Superman grave, unless this was, a reshot of that, or not a reshot, but the original version, I guess. Or maybe he's digging up someone else, but who that would be, I don't know, or why. You also have his father, Silas Stone, being killed while they're testing on Mother Box, which I'm surprised they gave that away. But fine, grand. Again, it's like Watchmen all over again. It's just Dr. Manhattan, isn't it? Which, again, he was asked, like, who's his favourite superhero, and he was like, Dr. Manhattan. And it's like, it feels like he just read... It feels like, to me, Zack Snyder's read 3 comics. He read Watchmen, he read Dark Knight Returns, and he read Death of Superman. That was it. And it seems like Watchmen, it's like, he's like, this is what superheroes are. Which, like, no, that's not the point of Watchmen at all, dude. But anyway, we also, like, kind of seem to get a few more hints that there might be some kind of tension. Like, it very vaguely hinted at it in the theatrical cut that, is Cyborg actually a good guy? Maybe he's being influenced by the Mother Box. I don't know. There's a moment where he's controlling missiles as well, which is pretty cool. And of course, we get to see him playing a football, because this is an American movie. Yeah, that's fine. Again, another problem is that some of this footage we've seen, some of this footage feels relatively similar, and some of it we've seen like in trailers. And then, to be fair, we also see like Iris West, Kiersey Clemens playing Iris West and Flash saving her. That was leaked online, so that's kind of out of their hands. But there is some stuff in this where I'm just like, yeah, kind of feel like this. I've seen this before. And there's some good stuff in it. There's Superman's fighting Steppenwolf. Seems a little bit similar, but it's a different shot. I didn't see it I actually flicked through to see if it was just the same shot. It wasn't, seemingly. I don't think it was in the theatrical cut. We have Superman floating kind of evilly above Metropolis. Fine. Presumably in his black suit. Yeah, he's in his black suit, actually, from memory. Batman deflecting parademon lasers with his gauntlets. That's cool. The big kind of one is we see Flash in the Speed Force. He's still... Ezra Miller's running, man. He still runs like that's something you should have fixed somehow. I don't care how you do it, just fix it. Like, he runs like a man who's surprised he can run. It's like when you see a toddler running or walking, they're just like, oh, he's kind of like the man has never run. What is that? Ugh. Spend less time choking women, Ezra Miller, and try go for a run, you fucking prick. Yeah, that was kind of it. It's a good trailer, I will say that. Does it give me any confidence that this movie is going to be any better in the theatrical cut? No. Does it look like it's a Zack Snyder movie? Yes, which is, I guess, obviously what everyone wants. The colours are all incredibly muted. There's a certain layer of pretense and excess. Is it going to be any good? I don't know. I find it very, very interesting. I want to see it, but I don't know if it's going to be any better. I'm kind of interested to see what happens after all this as well. Like, are people going to accept it's worse if it is worse? Is it going to be actually any good? If it's any good, does this mean we get more of that? I don't know. I kind of wonder if Zack has the balls to be like ending it on a cliffhanger, but I don't know. Anyway, that was the panel for Justice League Snyder Cut, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, or just the Snyder Cut. Who cares? Yeah, it was grand. Again, I'm not really a massive... I don't really care about the Snyder Cut too much. I mean, I find it interesting, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But it was a good trailer, to be fair to it, so I'll give it that. Then we went on to the next film, which is something we knew a lot less about, but we're hearing about for a long, long, long time, and that is Black Adam. African-American Adam, sir. It's 2020. African American Adam. AAA African American Adam. But to be fair, he's not, American, so I guess it would just be African Adam, AA. But that sounds kind of weird. Black Adam, when you think about it, is just such a funny name for a character, isn't it? Just, hey, he's Black Adam. Okay. Just an odd name, but anyway. We finally got a little bit of information on what Black Adam is from The Rock. It was weird because they showed a lot of stuff off, and it was all kind of this concept art stuff, which I'm not massively a fan of, but I guess it served the purpose. So the first thing we're going to look at is that teaser, which was basically telling us a little bit about the story of what Black Adam is. And it's pretty straightforward. Black Adam is a slave that is imprisoned, then he uses his power to fight back. And then it's like he's seemingly imprisoned, and then he wakes up 5,000 years later in the modern day. So that's grand. I'm really worried that we're going to get this awkward like fish out of water comedy where he's like, "What's this? It's a car. Oh, take me to your leader, car. Oh, what's an iPod? Oh," I hope it's not like that. It's kind of weird I find Black Adam quite odd for a few reasons, because it's like they want to make a superhero movie with The Rock, and it feels like they just were like, it's The Rock. Like Black Adam has a weird hair thing. I'm not saying I want to see that, but it also just feels like they're just like, who's Black Adam? Oh, he's The Rock. Okay, well, what? Tell me about him. Oh, it's The Rock. You all love The Rock. Fine. Okay, fair enough. Right. Which is fine, I guess. But kind of feel like it'd be nice to know a little bit more about him, maybe. It just kind of feels like I'm worried because it feels like The Rock makes the same movie all the time. I don't want that to happen to something like this. But rest assured, at least, it is going to be a little bit different, because this is going to introduce the Justice Society of America, we also got a concept trailer that's playing behind me. We had heard that this was the case already. The Justice Society of America are going to be in this, which included Atom Smasher, Hawkman, Cyclone, and Dr. Fate, which awesome inclusions. I think I actually talked about this when it was rumored in the last episode. Interestingly enough, The Rock also said they weren't allowed to use Hawkgirl. They weren't able to. Who knows what the reason for that is, but it's interesting to do Hawkman without Hawkgirl, because they have a kind of a romance throughout time and reincarnations and stuff. And obviously they can't do that without that, so how's that going to work? So maybe Hawkman is just angry without her, because that often is the case. The Justice Society of America feels like it could be something kind of going forward. It does really feel like Black Adam could be kind of the face of the DCEU, but I don't know if that will be the case. It's hard to call. There was Rock worked his ass off promoting this, man. He was all over Twitter. Just basically held down the whole thing by himself. So fair play to him. I should say I went viral almost because I recorded the footage, and what's weird is, as much as they were promoting this thing and they were talking a lot, they didn't put the footage online straight away. They were really slow to do it, so I had screen recorded it, and I was up quick enough that I think the footage I put up had 180,000 views. It was at one stage it was beating IGN, which is insane. So there obviously is an appetite for this movie. I don't know why they were so slow off the mark to put it up there. I don't know if they ever put it up officially, but regardless, I was briefly famous. So you can now say you were here for the beginning. Again, is this going to be good? Am I excited for it? Yes, but I'm also kind of worried. Is it just going to be a random Rock movie? I don't think it will be. I think there's enough going for this, and that it probably won't be. The Rock is very, very heavily involved in it. We didn't really get an answer to the question, is he a good guy or a bad guy? Generally, he's kind of positioned more as an anti-hero. I don't think The Rock is going to play full out and out bad guy anymore. I think he's one of those guys now where he's just I'm going to be a hero because I'm The Rock, goddammit. And again, his Justice Society of America, so maybe he's just be an anti-hero. I don't know. It was a decent panel. I'm not a big fan of those kind of concept art trailers. They kind of bug me, to be honest. It was fine, though. I think I'm pretty excited for the movie. Not majorly, But again, the concept art trailer kind of just made me go, yeah, grand. Let me know when there's actually something proper. Because it feels like we've been seeing Black Adam concept art for a decade now. Because he was announced so long ago that he was going to do this. And now we waited this long, and the big reveal is, hey, here's a concept art trailer, which you could have mucked up at any point. But hey, grand. Another thing we've been hearing about for a long time is Rocksteady's next game. And we finally got it. What is Rocksteady working on, you ask? Is it Batman? No. But it's kind of probably got Batman in it. Maybe. Which is, they announced that their game, we heard about it before, officially unveiled, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. We had heard all sorts of rumors about a Suicide Squad game. In fact, Warner Brothers Games Montreal were apparently working on this Suicide Squad game, and then Rocksteady were like, hey, if you're not working on it, we'd work on a Suicide Squad game. Cool. And this is what they came up with. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. That's a tricky one to say. A lot of people wanted, something else out of this. They were like, is it Superman? Is it another Batman thing? Now, they said it wasn't Batman. They said it wasn't Superman. We got the Suicide Squad. I don't know how to feel about this one. This was a bit of a letdown because we've been hearing rumors about what they're working on for so long that I was like, oh, it's going to be something good. And what we got is fine, in my opinion. Now, again, the problem is as well with something like this is that it is a CG trailer for a game, so it's hard to judge its entire quality. This could be a representation of the game, or maybe it's not. What do we get out of this? That sounded very entitled. What do I get out of this? It's launching in 2022, pretty far away. Next gen, obviously, at that point. The lineup that we're given, there could be other characters after this, who knows, but these seem to be the four main ones. King Shark, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and Captain Boomerang. It's an okay lineup, I guess. Not bad. Fine. We have a 1 to 4 player co-op. I assume, once again, you can play it by yourself. Actually, yeah, you can. You can play it by yourself, and the other characters are then filled with AI. So that's good. You can switch between squad members. Obviously, the trailer confirms Brainiac. It confirms Metropolis. This is apparently set in the Arkhamverse. It's a Rocksteady game, so I guess that makes sense. The question is, how does that tie in? I think by the end of Arkham Knight, Batman had faked his death. So I don't know. Has someone taken up the mantle of Batman? Is Batman actually alive or revealed to be alive? I don't know. Seems kind of like whatever. It doesn't need to be set in the Arkhamverse because you're not really doing anything that tied to it. So who cares? Yeah. Aside from that, it sounded like the guy who does Junkrat for Overwatch was doing the voice for Captain Boomerang. I don't know though. There's a Green Lantern balloon at one point. I assume you're going to be taking on the rest of the Justice League. I thought I read a confirmation at one stage from a leak. Confirmation from a leak seems like an oxymoron. That Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman are like the main ones that make sense. The Trinity. I don't know if you can actually kill them though, which is like okay. I wonder if it's going to be a thing like we got him, put him in jail, or blah. So that's kind of a letdown. But I guess if you're doing a kind of a universe, you probably don't want to kill off those characters. There's not a lot else in this trailer. It's a CG trailer. It seems like everyone has their own kind of mode of transport. Harley Quinn has a grappling hook. Captain Boomerang can teleport using a boomerang. Jetpack for Deadshot. We see someone kind of setting someone on fire with jetpack. King Shark I think can just do massive kind of bounds like the Hulk. And naturally, since this is a Suicide Squad game, there's a massive helicopter crash at the end, which is always the case. So, how am I feeling about this one, man? I really don't know, because CG trailers are tough ones to judge a game anyway. I don't know if I feel like I want a Suicide Squad game, and I don't know. It's hard to tell off what this really is. Is it just a random shooter with the Suicide Squad license? I hope not, because Rocksteady make great games, generally speaking. But also, considering how long we've been hearing about this, how long the gap between games have been, it just kind of feels like this is a bit of a letdown. And it was always probably going to be, if we're honest. Now, also, Rocksteady had some unfortunate allegations come out during the week about their treatment of female workers. And, of course, crunch, which is an ongoing issue in the game industry. Which is horrible, obviously. You have to condemn that. I brought that up. I'm not sure what my point is to bring it up. Just, I guess, be aware of it. But regardless, Superman is the big reveal in the trailer, obviously. We kind of knew he was going to be in it anyway, because we had that poster that came out. Hey, guess what? It's evil Superman again. Yay! Why? Why is every time we get Superman out, he's evil or he's a bad guy? It's like, why can't he just be Superman? At one stage we all thought it was Bizarro, and I guess there's still a review that it could be Bizarro, but probably not. It doesn't look like it, does it? Why is Superman just has to be a bad guy now? And also, hey, Superman's a bad guy. Let's get other bad guys to take him on. Batman, Wonder Woman, can you help with Superman? No? Okay, great. We'll send someone with a load of people with guns and a massive shark after them. That'll do it. We'll send the guy with the boomerangs to kill Superman. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about this one, man. I was excited to see what it was, but again, there was not enough details there to get me excited. Just kind of wait and see. My opinion, I think. Again, with Gotham Knights, I was like meh, and then I saw the gameplay and I was like, oh, okay, I think that's a bit better than I expected it to be. Maybe once I see gameplay here, I'll be like, hey, that's not bad. I don't know, but regardless, surprisingly, I was actually more excited from Gotham Knights, which I didn't think I would be saying. There's only a few other things I want to touch on before we get to the big dog of this whole panel. And it's just a kind of brief aside. We had the Aquaman panel. That was the most pointless panel of the weekend. It was like, first of all, Jason Momoa was like the only Justice League member who had no presence at the whole thing, and he wasn't even at the Aquaman panel. It's like, where is he? What's going on? Seems kind of odd, because he's normally like a big supporter of the DCU. Basically, it was just like, hey, remember we made that movie Aquaman? Wasn't that pretty good? It sure was. Are we working on a sequel? Yeah, we're working on a sequel. What's going on in the sequel? It's going to be better and darker. Oh yeah, it's going to be a real Empire Strikes Back, isn't it? Yeah, that's what they say about all the sequels. Am I going to be in it? Yeah, you're going to be in it, Patrick Wilson. When's that movie coming out? Oh, soon, eventually. And that was it. It was just like, it was weird. It was like a retrospective on Aquaman, like a movie that's not even that old, and it was just two guys talking about it. There was nothing there. They didn't show us a title. They didn't give us concept art. Nothing. It was just like, hey, remember Aquaman? Remember it because there's going to be more. And that was it. So grand, fine. Thanks for that. They said it's going to be more serious and explore new worlds, which is what everyone has said about every sequel that ever happened. A much better job I thought they did was actually as far as, if you're going to show something and not give anything away, I thought they did a much better job in that regard with the Shazam trailer, which was really cute, actually. I don't go in for these kind of stupid kind of jokey panels, but this was pretty cute. It was like, they had the cast and Zachary Levi was kind of there first. And then like Sinbad showed up because everyone thinks Sinbad is in that movie Kazam, which is not Sinbad. Kazam, people get confused with Shazam. It was this really tenuous connection, and he was like, "Hey, I'm in the movie though, right?" And they kept teasing like, "We can't show this, we can't say who's in it." Blah blah blah. And then they eventually like I can't remember the little actress's name. What was her name? Was it Daria or something in the film? I can't remember. Began with a D, I think. But she did a little poster, and poster was just regular kind of art, but it revealed the title to be Shazam: Fury of the Gods, which is pretty awesome. Does that mean we're going to get more God DC characters in this movie? Could Black Adam appear? Probably a bit early for that, but still, we got a title, so we got something out of it. I guess that's good. But yeah, I mean, it was better than the Aquaman panel. It was out of all the to be honest, there was 3 panels that were like a bit of a dud, which was Flash, Aquaman, and Shazam. Shazam was at top. Shazam actually was short. It seemed kind of sweet. It was funny. Whereas the other ones, it was like, okay, whatever. Aquaman was the worst. Aquaman, you're the worst. That's right. I don't care how cool or tough or sexy you're going to make him look with Jason Momoa. I still see through you. I'm still dunking on Aquaman like it's fucking every year until Jason Momoa casts him. Let me stop my rambling. Let me talk about the big reveal, the big thing everybody's talking about. They can't get enough of it. I'm in that camp as well. I cannot get enough of this, and that is Matt Reeves' Batman, or the Batman. Let's see if let me do that properly. I'm going to do my Cillian Murphy. Okay, this is the part where when I put a highlight online, it'll be side by side with me and Cillian Murphy. Here we go. The Batman. Nah, I can do better than that. The Batman. There, that's okay. that was terrible. I swear, I practiced this in the front of the mirror. The Batman, Matt Reeves' Batman. We had a panel. The panel itself was kind of like, yeah, it was grand. There wasn't much to take away from it. There was a few things though that I'm going to talk about. They really they really kind of stressed that, hey, this is like an origin not just for Batman but for kind of everyone. This is Batman in his 2nd year of being Batman, but it's still very early on. Selena is not Catwoman yet. We do see in the trailer she's kind of stealing things, and she doesn't have a Catwoman costume, but she's a hat that look kind of like Cat here. It's very much year one. That's funny, actually. That's really annoying. There's like two go-to references anytime someone's on about a Batman movie. So you know, in the IT crowd, when like Moss and Roy are like talking about soccer, and they just get out of every situation by just going, "Oh, Arsenal just trying to walk it in." If you ever want to talk about a Batman movie and sound like you're in the know, here's what you do. If it's an origin movie, oh yeah, it reminded me a lot of Year One. Oh yeah, it did actually. Very well said. Well said. If it's old or Batman is retired, it reminded me a lot of Dark Knight Returns. Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah, because that's the only thing anyone ever references. Which I have to say, this finally feels like we have a director, and that's no offense to the other directors. They went for their own tones, and generally speaking, the Batman movies have been pretty solid. This is the first time it feels like to me we have a director who has actually read a lot of Batman comics and has like a wide knowledge. Because as much as I say there's a Year One influence, I felt like there's a Long Halloween influence. It's kind of got that crime story with a lot of villains in it. I felt that there was a Hush influence. I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. I actually felt, obviously, there's a Court of Owls kind of influence potentially, but that's only apparently, like, that's a guess. I don't know if that's true. I could see it playing out eventually, or maybe in this expanded Batman universe. Batman Year Zero is a Scott Snyder one that I actually reminded me a bit of, which is kind of Batman in between him becoming Batman, like the Batman from Year One and when he had left, between when he left Gotham. Basically, it's like a prequel to the prequel, or a prequel to his origin, which is a fantastic book actually. And he had referenced himself a book called Batman Ego, which is a relatively obscure one actually. I hadn't actually read that one, and it's pretty expensive to buy, so I probably won't be reading it anytime soon. He also said like this is the Riddler just beginning as well. Oswald is not yet the Penguin. Which whatever that means. I wonder, is that kind of thing it's going to be like, you know, like in Dark Knight where it's like, what's my name? I can't call you that name, and he's like, say my name by the end. So I wonder if it's like by the end of them they're going to be like, oh my god, it's the Penguin, and he's going to beat the shit out of the guy, and it's like, yeah, I'm the Penguin, dun, dun, dun. Which the Penguin is played by Colin Farrell, unrecognizable as the Penguin. He's just like, it's nuts. We spent half the trailers being like, is that Colin Farrell? Like, for after a while, it felt like the buzz was like off the Batman trailer. More like, Colin Farrell, was he in that trailer? Yeah, he's in that trailer. Gotham PD is a battle for his soul. That's what we talked about the TV series. Didn't say much. Just kind of said like, hey, it's going to be great. Terrence Winters as well. Terrence Winters is great. Yada yada yada. They also mentioned that it's kind of a blend of aesthetics. He very interestingly said that, like, and this is what I love to hear, because I feel like Gotham a lot of the time just feels like any city in some versions. Tim Burton kind of got close enough to Gotham, I think, but aside from that, generally, and maybe Batman Begins as well, but aside from that, generally, it's just like, hey, it's a city. He said they're going to blend Liverpool, the kind of Gothic architecture of Liverpool, with some CG buildings that are bigger to give it that look, which is really good. I like that. They're almost building it from the ground up to a certain degree. It's Batman Year 2, as we said. People are kind of still afraid of them, of the Batman, which is good. Well, it's not good for them, but they also said Batman is more flawed in this one, which I think really hints into the trailer, which we're going to get to now. So I think everyone has seen the trailer at this point. It took over the world. We also got a poster from DC Fandome that's just red and black, the Jim Lee design. That gives us a bit of a look at the costume, but of course, we can see the actual costume in the trailer, which we have here, which I've watched like a couple of times every day since it came out. I'd say it's such this is, like, with this show, with this podcast, there are times sometimes where a trailer comes out and I just kind of have to like feign interest in it to a certain degree, where I have to talk about it to a certain degree, look over it too much. I love this trailer. This is one of my favorite trailers, maybe ever. I can't remember the last trailer that made me go like sit up and pay attention like this. Maybe it might have actually been Watchmen, as much as that movie was meh and Zack Snyder's a bit meh as well. The trailer for that was excellent. Interestingly, they've apparently only shot 25% of the movie, so the fact they managed to get such an amazing trailer out of this is really, really outstanding. But what do we get out of this trailer? And what's great about it is that it doesn't give much away, and obviously it's the first trailer for a movie that's not out until sometime next year, if even at all, because it has to go back into production in September. So I think it would be very, very tricky to get it to hit its release date. It's a really, really, really dark trailer. Like, you know, I was gonna say this isn't your dad's Batman, but then I was like, I'm old enough now where I could be a dad. So like, when I say this isn't your dad's Batman, Am I just saying this isn't a Batman for me anymore? Is Christian Bale my Batman? Is that just the way it is? Have I aged out of having a new Batman? I can't have Robert Pattinson as my Batman, I guess. I don't know. It's really, like, he's really, really violent. And it was weird because, like, this was so dark that even my dad, who I'm like, he doesn't know anything about movie ratings and stuff, but he was like, is this going to be an R rating in America, is it? I was like, what? Anyway, have you been listening to my podcast, Dad? Yeah, apparently at the time they were saying it's going to push the limits of a PG-13, and certainly you believe it from this. It has a real, it reminded me of a few different things. It reminded me a lot of David Fincher's Seven, where we have that kind of criminal being chased by a cop, really dark, leaving clues and that kind of thing, which obviously is the Riddler's MO anyway. But it's like insanely dark, where I'm like, the Riddler has been deconstructed to a point he's like a serial killer with, plastic bags strapped to his head, which is just terrifying. So what else do we get out of this trailer? Again, Catwoman is in it. We see a moment where Batman is fighting Catwoman. It seems like we're at the point where the Gotham PD has a sort of uneasy alliance with Batman. They're kind of, I wonder if this could be like kind of the first time of him like being welcomed onto a crime scene. And that's why they're giving him some strange looks. They're teasing a big connection between Batman and the Riddler. But the question is what that is. Does it go into their past? We know this is a flawed Batman. If you were going to explore that origin, it probably works to kind of give us an origin that is almost sort of, running tangential to the origin of the villain. So I don't know. And that is why I really wonder if we're being misdirected here. I think the Riddler is in this, based on a lot of the other stuff. But this character reminds me a lot of Hush. Now, the backstory of Hush is that he is a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne. And I believe Bruce Wayne's parents, or his father, was a surgeon, and I think he tries to save the life of his friend, Thomas Elliot, and his parents end up dying under the knife. And because of that, he harbours a kind of a grudge, and Hush often changes appearances and tapes up his face. In the Arkham games, at one point, he actually steals Bruce Wayne's identity. And it reminds me a lot of Hush in that regard. Now, Hush, as a villain aside from that, is kind of does have that kind of history and connection to Bruce Wayne that a lot of other characters don't have. Maybe it's just a misdirection. Maybe it's just going for that vibe. Maybe it's a blend of the characters, or they just took some certain inspirations. I mean, you can certainly do the Riddler that way as well. It kind of really does seem like Riddler knows Batman's identity. So how does he know that? Is there a connection to before he was Batman, which wouldn't be a shock either. Aside from that, we do, of course, have actual riddles shouted by seemingly Paul Dano. He says, if you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye? So seemingly Batman has possibly corrupted to a certain degree. Maybe he made a mistake, and they keep saying he's flawed. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, or he made one fatal mistake, and that's why the Riddler's calling him out, that he's not Gotham's true savior, etc. What else do we have in the trailer? We have a very iconic, a tease of a very iconic line to a certain degree, although it's been somewhat adapted. So Kevin Conroy as Batman has a very famous line where he goes, and I'm going to give this my best Kevin Conroy, which I don't think I'll get anywhere close to Kevin Conroy, but I do impressions of everyone else. I might as well just embarrass myself further. But he goes, I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. And this line, Batman beats the fucking shit out of him. He beats him so badly, where it's like, I think they really put this in just to be like, yeah, that's right, Robert Pattinson is a tough Batman. What are you saying now, man, huh? It was like, it really reminded me of a UFC fight, because he like literally immediately grabs him, kind of breaks his arm, beats the hell out of him, and I'm like, he's down, and I'm like, well, call it, ref, and he goes in with the hammer fists. I'm like, break it up, Herb Dean, like, oh, he just beats the crap out of him, and he goes, who are you? And he's like, I am vengeance. So I think that's an allusion to that line, which a lot of people have pointed out. Apparently a tease to the Court of Owls, which would also be a good way to explore Batman's origin. They very much tie into that, and his family, which would be an interesting way of taking it. But I don't know, that could easily just be an Easter egg, like the card has an owl on it, that's about it. Maybe the Riddler and the Court of Owls are kind of tied together, and that's how he knows Batman's identity. I don't know. But an interesting one nonetheless. What else is in this trailer? First of all, I want to talk about the suit, which I wasn't a fan of initially. I do kind of like it. They're going for a suit where it looks like he could possibly construct it himself. I kind of like it. It's the cowl is the only thing that I'm a little bit like, I don't know. We didn't get confirmation that the bat symbol is the guns, which a lot of people have been theorizing it's the gun that killed his parents. We didn't get any confirmation of that, so I don't know. But yeah, no, the suit has grown on me. I think it does look better. Obviously, like, to be fair, when it's well lit and you get a better look at it, of course it's going to look good, because when you see it like on a rainy street in Scotland or whatever the fuck, it's not going to look good anyway. No one looks good in a suit in Scotland on a rainy day. What else do we have? The Batmobile, we kind of got to look at that in action to a certain degree. I mean, I like the Batmobile. I think it's kind of a good blend of the kind of tumbler and the classic Batmobile. It's like a modified sports car. Not much to say on that, really. One of the minor things I want to point out, actually, there's a moment where it looks like Batman has like a kind of a face mask on, because hey, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Good work, Batman. Covering his face. This could be an early point. This is kind of what actually reminded me of a sort of a year one, a 0 year as well, where it's like maybe he's Batman before he's Batman, and we also get this moment that a lot of people fall in love with, and I have to admit why, because I was watching The Dark Knight recently, and it's like so clearly they have the eyeliner on, and I'm just like, it really takes the coolness out of Batman at times, where you're just like, because they never really acknowledge it, but it's like, oh, so he's going out to fight crime, and then he's just like, yeah, let me just put this eye makeup on. There we go. Yeah, perfect. Oh no, gosh, smeared it. God damn, Alfred. Now there is a few questions kind of beyond that. I don't think we get answered necessarily. Some people are kind of saying, "Hey, this is Robert Pattinson's a great Batman," which I don't know. I mean, it doesn't feel like we necessarily get a lot of his performance in this. He certainly looks the part, and I like, look, I've been flying the Robert Pattinson flag for a while now. I think he's a great actor. Obviously, he has the potential to be a great Batman, and he probably is, realistically, because it looks like they nailed everything else in this trailer, from the tone to the cinematography. So I've no doubt he's a great Batman. I don't think we necessarily get a lot of that from this, though. The other thing is, and this is a weird one, because I was kind of thinking about this recently, because like, the Batman series has been odd, and obviously I've rewatched the Dark Knight movies recently, which I've been reviewing, and I'll review the last one soon. I saw it a couple weeks ago, but I just these shows are getting way too long, and it's kind of weird, because I remember when Dark Knight ended that trilogy, I was like, I'm so ready now for like a new take on Batman, because we've had that grounded, realistic one. Now we can have something that's weirder, a world where he could fight, a weird alien or some supernatural character. And then we had Batman v Superman, and obviously that was him versus Superman. I guess that was as much as we got there, and the Justice League film was whatever. So I kind of feel like we never really got that, and I don't think this is going to be that either. It seems very gritty and grounded. So I think it'd be weird if all of a sudden they were like, hey, here's fucking alien whatever. Why can't I think of a weird Batman villain? Like, here's Ra's al Ghul, he's revived from the Lazarus pit. You're like, what? But I'm dark gritty Batman. You can't be reincarnated. Man Bat, there we go. Yeah, like, I don't know how that word kind of works, so is it likely that we'd get that kind of tone in this Batman movie? Probably not. It seems like it's very dark and grounded, but I guess, well, actually, I don't know, because like, I guess that Affleck would have been that, but apparently Affleck is going to be written out after the Flash movie, so I don't know. It looks like we're going back to a kind of dark, gritty Batman, reminiscent of the Dark Knight, but obviously this seems to be something, all into itself, for lack of a better term. And look, I love this trailer. I can't say anything else really about it, because for a first look, this is a strong one. This got everyone talking. I mean, I think a good measure of the success of this trailer, I think, is the fact that I saw it on TV, which is not something they do for every trailer. I think it was the third most viewed trailer in Reddit history, behind one of the Avengers movies, that maybe it was Infinity War or Endgame. And Incredibles 2, surprisingly. And it was the third most one viewed trailer, which, again, so kind of close to its race, is outstanding. This really got everyone talking. It seems like it's somewhat a kind of a dark reconstructionist take on Batman, but not to the degree that it doesn't feel recognizable as Batman. It's also very much an origin for Gotham in general, seemingly, and the villains. of Batman's Rogues Gallery, which when you look at it, like generally speaking, we have we have 4 big Batman villains that's kind of established from the 60s Batman, and that's the way it's carried on, which is the Penguin, Catwoman, the Riddler, and Joker. Now look, don't give us Joker. Remember when we used to get like a Joker like once every 10 years, and I was like, wow, there's a new Joker and it's going to be awesome. And now it feels like every like year it's like, no, this guy's the Joker, and no, this person's Joker, and yeah, this person's Joker on TV, and that person. It's like, whoa, okay, we don't need the Joker. I'm excited to see how Matt Reeves take on the Joker, but we're not in a rush to get that, right? So we have 3 of the 4 here, and they're all in the process where they're very early on. So this is very much an origin for Gotham kind of happening all at once, which is interesting because normally we kind of have either this is the Batman origin or this is the origin for the villain, and this time we're kind of getting it all at once. And of course we're also getting TV series, so who knows how long or how much we will get of that as well. It's good that way. I do wonder what's going. It's kind of tough to judge this as well because it is only 25% of the movie, and what we're going on here, it basically seems like, you know, Riddler is leaving bodies, and he's basically trying to get Batman to kind of reveal some sort of truth about himself, or that maybe he is not the kind of savior Gotham needs, and that is why. And seemingly, weirdly, Batman isn't fully aware, like, because at the end of the trailer, he's like, "You're involved in all this," and he's like, "How?" And he's like, "You'll know soon enough," or whatever. So there's also a very interesting moment in the trailer that it looks like there's a moment where Gordon kind of attacks Batman. I'm guessing it basically there was like an ultimatum maybe of, hey, the murders will stop if you turn the Batman in, or you arrest the Batman, blah blah blah. And seemingly it looks like they're going to do that, because there is certainly one scene where Batman is escaping from GCPD. So interesting. Fantastic trailer. As I said, there's nothing else I can say about it. There's very little negative I can say about it. The only negative I was saying was that I don't know how much you can judge Robert Pattinson's performance, but I'm sure it's excellent based on this. It looks like he's certainly well able to do this part, as I think many of us hoped he was. And kind of whether or not this is going to just go back to Dark Gritty Batman, which I don't hate. I love it. I love the trailer. I love that. But I do kind of feel like, be careful that you don't go too far and just step on the Nolan's toes. Now, I do think this looks a lot more stylized. I do think that there's a bit more Batman elements here, which is another thing that I was kind of excited post Nolan films, because they feel like in some ways Nolan was like, I don't want to do too much of a Batman film, where it feels like this is at least acknowledging his mythos and the universe that Batman has been in forever. So yeah, fantastic trailer. I don't know what more I can say about it. Everyone has talked about it and talked about it to death. It was just a fantastic trailer. So this goes back into production in September. We're probably not going to hear any more about it or see any more about it for quite a while now, because I don't think it's going to make 2021. Or if it does, it'll be very late. The rumor already was that it was going to be October 2021, I think. And that was before all this kicked off. So I think, I don't know, maybe it could be pushed to next year. And in that case, we're getting a look at it very early on, especially if you're only going back into production in September, and that's assuming that production doesn't have to shut down again. So yeah, I mean, excellent trailer. Really looking forward to seeing what comes from Matt Reeves' Batman, because he's just a fantastic director. I love, specifically, I love his War of the Planet of the Apes. I think that's just one of the best blockbuster movies that came out in recent memory, and that was decently Fandome. And speaking of the best blockbusters in recent memory, that's going to bring us to the Summer Blockbuster Showdown, which we started last week's episode, if you missed out, where I'm looking at 20 years of blockbusters, 100 films, and trying to narrow it down to just one, and what is the defining summer blockbuster. And that's what we're going to go back to today, between 2005 and 2009. The Summer Blockbuster Showdown. Check it out. So certainly the kind of end of the Star Wars prequel trilogy is going to be a big thing. As far as cultural impact, very likely at the moment, we have 5 films gone through. It's first place, 5 are battling for second at the moment. Or battling in second. I mean, they're already second. Box office, Star Wars gets 868 million. War of the Worlds, 603 million. Madagascar, 542. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 487. And Charlie Hawk Factory, 474 million. Few notes here. Batman Begins has a pretty humble beginning because that doesn't make the cut. I think Batman Begins came in at maybe 8th that year, and as a result, it does not make the box office countdown here, which is a surprise, but it'll certainly come back with a vengeance soon. Again, Star Wars is not the highest grossing film of the year. What was? Well, let's have a look. 2005. This is a bit of a pop quiz. What do you think was number one film in 2005? Harry Potter, of course it was. Just beaten by Harry Potter. Batman Begins was the 9th highest grossing film in the year, actually. In fact, it was nearly beaten by Hitch. Don't mess with fucking Big Willie Smith there, right? So yeah, Star Wars gets the number one for its box office. Charlie and Chocolate Factory is 5. We'll call them out in order. The cost of the films: 113 for Star Wars Episode 3, 132 for War of the Worlds, 75 for Madagascar, 110 for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and 150 Charlie and Chocolate Factory. That's right. Star Wars cost just 3 million more than Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Crazy. So yeah, most expensive film of the year, or in this bunch, was surprisingly Charlie and Chocolate Factory, followed by what are we at? War of the Worlds, followed by Star Wars, followed by Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and then Madagascar. Okay, so 1 to Charlie and Chocolate Factory is number 1, Madagascar number 5, 2 War of the Worlds, 3 Star Wars, 4 Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The originality: Star Wars Episode 3 is the 2nd or 5th sequel, depending on the way you look at it. War of the Worlds, I mean, it's a reboot again of War of the Worlds. I mean, we've had that story a million times. Not going to do it any favors in the originality. Madagascar is original. Madagascar is walking away with number 1, surprisingly. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is also original. I think Madagascar is more original than Mr. and Mrs. Smith, if we're entirely honest. So because of that, I'm going to give Madagascar number 1. Mr. and Mrs. Smith number 2. Charlie and Chocolate Factory is a reboot again. They don't score very highly. Star Wars Episode 3 is going to get number 3 for originality, and Charlie and Chocolate Factory is going to get a 4 because it's a reboot and it's also based on a book. War of the Worlds, I mean, we've had millions of versions of that. It's based on a book. Number 5, right off the bat. So Madagascar does well on originality there. Madagascar might be doing pretty well, actually. The impact, the cultural impact, and the acclaim. We get an 80 and a 66 on Rotten Tomatoes. First one being critics, second one being audience for Star Wars. It's widely regarded as the best prequel. Some go as far as to say it redeems them, but I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. 1 Oscar nomination, so not bad, actually. Again, it's the end of the prequel trilogy, so that does a lot of favors as far as cultural impact goes. For War of the Worlds, 75 critics score. The audience score, though, 42. Woo! People did not like this movie, apparently. 3 Oscar nominations. It's remembered more for its ending, which some saw as ludicrous, and Dakota Fanning's massive amounts of screaming. It's mostly forgotten now, to be honest, which is a shame. I actually watched it recently and thought it was quite good. But regardless, yeah, not a great cultural impact score for that one. Madagascar, surprisingly, I Like to Move It was kind of it's reached cultural prominence. People remember that song because of this movie. I mean, that's probably its main thing it's got going for it. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 60 audience score, 58. 60 critics, 58 audience. It's mostly just remembered as a film that was like, oh, Brad Pitt and Angelina, they're together. I mean, they're not now, so because of that, it's a weird, outdated cultural landmark. So because of that, it's not going to do well on the cultural impact. Rotten Tomatoes for our next one, 83 and 51. Charlie and Chocolate Factory. I mean, the audiences did not like it. It's just remembered for a bit of an oddity, to be honest. Not much else. Just being like, what the fuck? Remember that time Tim Burton made Charlie and Chocolate Factory? That's weird. So yeah, number 1 cultural impact, I'm going with Star Wars because it was the end of the prequel trilogy. It felt big. Number 2 for Madagascar, surprisingly, because that song was big and it's kind of been remembered as a result. 3 to War of the Worlds. It's remembered not necessarily for fond reasons, but 4, I'm going to give to Charlie and Chocolate Factory because it is remembered to talk about, even if it's for the wrong reasons. Again, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, just incredibly outdated now that they're no longer a couple, so it's just very irrelevant to the modern times and mostly forgotten as a result, if we're honest. Madagascar, sequels, spin-offs, TV shows, theme park show. I mean, it launched a franchise based on nothing. Number 1 cultural impact. Franchise score. I forget my own rules. This was Star Wars, like, eventually there would be sequels. I think unrelated to this, not necessarily what George Lucas wanted anyway. So I'm only going to give that 2 franchise because it brought the franchise to an end, I guess. And based on the fact that the rest of the stuff has nothing. Not None of the other films are a franchise, get sequels. So because of that, it kind of is lucky to get number 2, to be honest, because there is sequels, I guess. Okay, so the scores in this one are going to be a little bit weird. Just making sure there's no way that 3rd, 4th, or 5th can be affected by the franchise one, because then I'd have to make a really difficult decision. No. Okay, so number 1. Oh my god, I can't believe it. Star Wars Episode 3 is first. It's going through. Okay. Madagascar is in second place to fight, so that's surprising, man. But there you go. Pretty big films. Some which have aged well, some of which have aged terribly. Pirates of the Caribbean, of course, got a sequel in Dead Man's Chest. We had Cars. We had X-Men: The Last Stand. We had The Da Vinci Code. And we had Mission Impossible 3. Worth noting here. First of all, Superman Returns, like Batman before him, doesn't crack the top 5. Okay? It's just about missing out. It's 7 million behind Mission Impossible 3. So Superman Returns was unlucky, but if we're honest, probably wouldn't have fared that well anyway. Pirates becomes just the 3rd film at the time to have crossed $1 billion. Now, it seems like every film does it, but it was a big deal when Pirates did it back in 2006. So, when we look at the box office, as you might suspect, the big film was Dead Man's Chest, considering it made $1 billion and that wasn't really done. Pirates of the Caribbean was the number 1 film of the year, and as a result, it's getting a number 1 in its rank for this. Da Vinci Code, though, was a massive film, 760 million, giving it number 2. Cars, 461 million, number 3. X-Men: The Last Stand, 460, number 4, just missing out on Cars. And Mission Impossible, just shy of 400 million, that gives it a 5. Then we get to the cost of these movies. Okay? Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, very expensive for the time, 225 million. Highest budgeted film here, that gets to number 1. Da Vinci Code, 125 million budget, just above Cars, which has 120 million budget. X-Men: The Last Stand, 210, will give it a number 2 in its cost. Mission Impossible 3, 150 million, will give it number 3. Da Vinci Code, number 4. Cars, number 5. Surprisingly, Da Vinci Code costs more than Cars. I don't know why, that just sounds surprising to me. Originality, it's, oh my god, I'm already seeing something that's going to make me feel sick. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest is a sequel. Okay? So uses marks based on that. Da Vinci Code is based on a book. Again, that could help the Da Vinci Code. This is the one that I felt sick about. Cars is original. It's not based on anything. I actually just feel like I threw up in my mouth. Cars is original. Like, the film is just basically Cars. Imagine if people were Cars. Everyone is Cars. That's original, apparently. So that's what that gets. X-Men: The Last Stand is a comic and a second sequel, so that hurts it. Mission Impossible 3 is a second sequel and based on a TV reboot, so that also doesn't help it. Cars, unfortunately, is getting a number 1 for originality. Da Vinci Code is getting I'd say a number 2. Yeah. And number 3 is going to Pirates, since it's just the first sequel. 4 will go to X-Men because it's the second sequel. 4 will go to... I'm going to give 4 to X-Men. It's close between X-Men and Mission Impossible, but I think I'm going to give it to X-Men because X-Men is the second sequel that's based on a comic. Second sequel to Mission Impossible, that's TV reboot. It's been around longer. I'm going to say 4 to X-Men and 5 to Mission Impossible. Cultural impact and acclaim. So we have Pirates of the Caribbean 2. It was a massive deal when it came out. The audience loved it a lot more than critics. 53 in Rotten Tomatoes for critics and 72 from the audience. The next entry would be the real kind of turn the tide against the franchise. See what I did there? Yeah, turn of the tide. The bigger impact is probably the groundbreaking effects. Of course, those effects still hold up. Davy Jones, Bill Nye's character. People still talk about them. So I think that helps as well. And the continued idea of kind of shooting like a successful film with back-to-back sequels, they're still doing that now. Obviously, it was done before, but I think that was kind of one of the bigger cases and one of the more expensive cases, certainly. 1 Oscar win and 3 other nominations. So I think Cultural Impact is going to be pretty kind to that one. Cultural Impact of the Da Vinci Code, I mean, it was a big success. Now it's mostly a weird time capsule where everyone was crazy with the Da Vinci Code very briefly. I mean, people didn't really come back for the sequels as much, so I think this is just a weird, obscure thing. I think the cultural impact points to a very specific time, but I think as we've gone on, it's been quickly forgotten. Cars, it's seen as a decline by Pixar by many. The characters are remembered though. Yeah, the impact of this one is debatable, man. 75 critics, 79 audience. That's a tough one. X-Men: The Last Stand helped. Let's see, it helped establish the trend that the third film sucks. It's known for some awkward writing characters. To its credit, it does feel bigger in scale than other X-Men films, so this is a tough one. Cultural impact of Mission Impossible, it got the film series to a higher critical ground and helped establish J.J. Abrams as a film director. 71 critics score, 69 audiences. Later entries would surpass it quite easily. In terms of quality, as such, it's often overlooked. This is a tough one cultural impact wise. Number 1 is going to be Pirates. Number 5 is going to be Da Vinci Code. It's the middle ones here that are throwing me. See, even though the cultural impact of X-Men, and it probably forced them as well to do Dark Phoenix again. Cars, people remember the characters. It was kind of known as okay. I'm gonna. Number 2 is going to Cars. People remember that film for better or worse. They remember the characters. Seen as a point of Pixar, the audience loved them more than critics. I'm saying that's a bit of a cultural impact. X-Men, putting number 3. Again, not a good cultural impact. People kind of remember it as being bad, but it did feel bigger in scale, and it did possibly set up the kind of idea of, Dark Phoenix, and even killing off these characters and bringing them back probably made a later film bigger. Mission Impossible 3, it's kind of mostly been forgotten. It launched, aside from JJ's being connected to it, I don't think people would remember too fondly. Giving that a 4. So, that lastly brings us to franchise. Pirates of the Caribbean, I mean, again, we have the problem with The Matrix here where it keeps the series afloat. Well, hey, another pirate pun. But again, there's already a sequel in the works, so again, and of course there would be sequels later on, but there's 2 far less successful sequels. Jesus. To the Da Vinci Code, this probably damaged the franchise, really. But yeah, because of that, not doing well there. Cars, I mean, whatever else you want to say about it, sequels, spin-offs, TV series, and a massive amount of merchandise means that Cars is going to do pretty well here. Might even I think Cars is going to top the franchise one. We got X-Men killed the main timeline for a bit, but the X-Men series continued, even though the interest in the series diminished until the characters returned in 2014. Yeah, I mean, like, this damaged the franchise. I think it's going to have to get a 3. Number 2, I'm giving to Mission Impossible. It was a more modest hit, but it did see that series on the right track, and it definitely kind of helped later entries and goodwill. Oh man, I have no idea how this one's going. The scoring on this one is all over the damn place. I actually don't know which one's going to get through. Oh god. Okay, Dead Man's Chest gets through, and Cars gets a second. Ugh. Okay, right. 2007 had Transformers, Spider-Man 3, Shrek the Third, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, bringing the Pirates of the Caribbean series to an end very briefly. Right. Let's have a look then. What else do we know about 2007 before we get started? This is the last year, except for possibly this year, the way things are going, where no film has grossed $1 billion, which is surprising, really. But 2020 is obviously going that way because there's no films. But aside from 2007, from every year after this, at least every film will gross $1 billion. One film will gross $1 billion, at least, I should say, not every film. 2007 is a very interesting year, man. You could do a whole fight with this year because it's considered a great year for cinema. Blockbusters are not a different. It's an absolute bloodbath. Like, let's just name a few films that don't make the top 5. Okay, Ratatouille, big film. Simpsons movie, big film. I mean, even like when you look at last year, right? Like the year before this, 2006, the 5th place film we had there, right, grossed less than 400 million. The 5th place film we have grossing here grossed over 700, and that should tell you. And it's like a big gap between 5th and 4th here. Other films that don't make the top 10 of summer releases: Ocean's 13, Live Free or Die Hard, Bourne Ultimatum, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. So in a lesser year like this, these would all have been in the conversation. So this is a tough bracket. The first year we've done where all the top 5 box office films were summer releases as well. This is, in other words, the top 5 as they are. It's not like number 1 was a winter film, but this is what we're calling number 1 our one. These are all summer releases, and this is all the top 5. So At World's End is the highest grossing film of the year, 960 million. Order of the Phoenix behind it with 941. Spider-Man 3 making 894 million. Shrek the Third 813, and Transformers 709. So again, World's End number 1, Transformers number 5 as the order they were in. The budget at World's End is incredibly costly. One of the most expensive films of all time, $300 million. Massive. These pirate sequels get really expensive as we go on. Harry Potter 5, 150 million, surprisingly. Spider-Man 3, another really expensive one, 258 million. Shrek the Third, 160 million, one of the more expensive DreamWorks films. Generally speaking, DreamWorks managed to keep it cheap. Transformers, 150 million. So, surprisingly, we get one of the cheaper films is Michael Bay's Transformers, but it ties with Harry Potter, so that could be awkward as I try to work this out. Number 1 is At World's End. Number 2 is Spider-Man 3. Number 4, Shrek. No, number 3 is Shrek. Yeah, that's surprising. Just about. Number 4 is going to be... Am I doing this right? Yeah, number 4 and number 5. Okay, right. Yeah, so 4 and 5, I'm going to go 4 to Harry Potter. Number 5, the Transform. Actually, you know what? I'm going to, even though they're tied, I would say, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to say Transformers looks more expensive. And because of that, it's getting 4. I mean, it's arbitrary. I don't know if those points are going to affect it, but we will see. I'll watch it now. Transformers will win by 1 point. Originality. Second sequel and a ride, based on a ride for Pirates of the Caribbean. Fourth sequel based on a book for Harry Potter. Second sequel based on a comic for Spider-Man. Second sequel based on a book for Shrek. First entry in a film franchise, but it's based on a cartoon for Transformers. It's based on toys, whatever you want to say. Yeah, because of that, I think originality is going to have to go to Transformers, because a lot of the stuff is sequels. Number 2, I will give to Pirates, just because it's only the second sequel. A lot of the other ones are on bigger ones. Yeah, second sequel based on a ride is more original. Second sequel based on a book, which is what Shrek is. So Shrek gets a 3. What gets 4 then? I guess this is math, man. Spider-Man 3 is based on a comic as opposed to a book, so I'll give that more original because it's probably less known. Number 5 goes to Harry Potter because it's like the 4th film at this point. They're based on books. We all know that. Cultural impact. Okay. Pirates. I mean, it's kind of often seen that this film killed the franchise or hurt the franchise severely. Something of a retread in the last entry ends in a trilogy. Again, did much better with audiences than critics at a 72 compared to critics 44. But, you know, again, not a great cultural legacy leaves behind. Depends on how the rest of these are going to do, I'd say. The cultural impact. You know, I've heard a lot of people say that Order of the Phoenix, they took one of the kind of lesser books and longer books and made it pretty good. It's also the first film from David Yates, who would do kind of all the Wizarding World films. So, depending who you ask, this could be kind of where the series got bland, but it's also because of that kind of where a kind of unified voice comes into the franchise. So possibly you could look at it that way. As I said, a lot of the problems is that when you have a franchise running for this long, eventually it just becomes Harry Potter sequel. They become indistinguishable, which is going to hurt its cultural impact a bit. Following the X-Men path, where for Spider-Man, where the third one drops the ball, it's remembered for that awkward dancing. And that's something, I guess, but it's not really remembered fondly. It's a shadow of the last 2 films. Audience score is actually lower than the critics one as well. Shrek the third, I should say, dropped the ball. It was Shrek. It really showed that Shrek could fail. Less successful than the previous entry, and it showed that the ogre's days were numbered. So, not a great showing from Shrek the Third because of that. Cultural impact isn't good. Transformers is a big one though. Cultural impact. Like it helped launch a massive franchise for Paramount. It kind of brought Transformers back into the public cultural consciousness. Inspired some massive robot films even. Along with kind of a renewed interest in 80s franchises like G.I. Joe and a Knight Rider, the TV series, kind of came around the same time. Rotten Tomatoes score, the audience score is a lot higher. Actually, they're inverses of each other. The critics is 58, the audience is 85. And it also had 3 Oscar nominations. So, cultural impact, Transformers is going number 1. Number 2 is going to go to Harry Potter. Yeah, Harry Potter, okay. Number 3, World's End. Number 4, Spider-Man. Number 5, Shrek the Third. Finally, franchise-wise, eventually Pirates would be rebooted. But this kind of really showed that the franchise was dead. The fact it damaged it is probably what is going to hurt it this time. We have, nothing was ever going to stop Harry Potter from carrying on as a franchise. We have we have a failed sequel for Spider-Man because it was going to get a Spider-Man 4, but it kind of failed. Then we get reboots that never really caught on. Spider-Man 3 damaged the franchise completely, which is not good. Shrek, gets a sequel, which would gross even less, even though it's apparently better. Most people have forgotten it. Transformers, franchise-wise, launches a $1 billion franchise. Sequels, spin-offs, definitely a good score there. So let's add these scores. This is, as I said, 2007 is a very tough year. Could go a couple of weird ways here. I think Transformers might be up top. Oh no. At World's End, surprisingly, is going through as well. At World's End has a score of 10, whereas Transformer has a score of 12. So because of that, Pirates of the Caribbean is once again getting a first place spot, and Transformers is getting a second place fight. It's actually mainly because of the budget of Pirates of the Caribbean. Just the cost in the box office of it really saved it this round. 2008 obviously sees a lot of big movies. A lot of big stuff happens as well in the superhero genre. We of course have the massive Dark Knight. We have the launch of the MCU with Iron Man, and Hancock as well holds its own at that year. Mamma Mia, it's too low a budget for me to consider a blockbuster. Did incredibly well, but the budget was just too low to consider it. Again, this is another competitive year. Hellboy 2, Wanted, Wall-E, Incredible Hulk, Prince Caspian in the Narnia franchise are just a few big releases that did not make the cut. But aside from that, as I said, it's a big year for superhero film. We kind of see almost a kind of two kind of splits here. We get the darker, kind of more realistic, grounded superhero that the Dark Knight would inspire. And then we have the birth of the MCU, the cinematic universe, with 2008's Iron Man. So, when it comes to box office, Dark Knight is the daddy, making nearly $1 billion. Actually, I think it does make $1 billion a bit after, but this is, I think, the gross at the time. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the return of Indiana Jones, makes $790 million. Kung Fu Panda, Out of Nowhere, $631 million. Hancock, $629 million. Iron Man, $585 million. When we get into the budget, highest budgeted film is Crystal Skull with $185 million, just beating the second highest budgeted film, Dark Knight, with $180 million. Hancock, $150 million. Again, Will Smith costs money, people. Anytime he's in a film, it's going to be up there. Iron Man, $140 million. And Kung Fu Panda, $130 million. So, highest grossing goes to Crystal Skull, number 1. Dark Knight is number 2. Number 3, Hancock. Number 4, Iron Man. Number 5, Kung Fu Panda. Originality. This is going to be a surprising one as well. Sequel and a comic book, Dark Knight, is a third sequel for Crystal Skull. Now, Kung Fu Panda, believe it or not, something I was not aware of until I did this, is based on a very obscure PS1 game called Tai Fu Wrath of the Tiger. Apparently that's where they got the idea for this. So, because of that, it loses some points on originality, apparently, completely unknowns to me. Iron Man is based on a comic, and Hancock is original. So because of that, Hancock is getting a number 1 for being original, which is surprising. Number 2 is going to Kung Fu Panda, because it's an obscure video game. Number 3 is going to Iron Man, because it's based on just a comic. Number 4 is going to Indiana Jones, because it's a third sequel. Number 5 goes to Dark Knight, because it's a sequel, and it's also based on a comic. So, surprisingly, it's kind of down the ladder there for originality. The acclaim and cultural impact. This is where it's going to get its revenge, though. 8 Oscar nominations for The Dark Knight, 2 wins. It changed the Academy's policy. When Dark Knight was not nominated for Best Picture, the next year they introduced more nominations for Best Picture. It changed that. That's massive. Considered one of the best superhero films of all time, it leads to a darker reimagining of many properties, and critics and audiences are in agreement, 94%. I mean, and you also just can't underestimate like the impact the Joker had on that. So that's massive. There's, mind you, I don't know if Iron Man could have had a bigger impact long term, so we'll have to see. When it comes to Crystal Skull, fans disliked it. It was seen as betraying the previous entries. Audience-wise, gave it a 54. Critics gave it a 78, but again, not great. Audience did not like it. So remember for nuking the fridge, which became synonymous with jumping the shark. Not a good legacy to leave behind. And yeah, that's not great. But again, even though it was a negative cultural impact, probably had a good cultural impact because of it. When that come into play when we get the scores. When it comes to Kung Fu Panda, 1 Oscar nomination. 87 critics, 83 audience. There's not a lot of impact aside from kind of the name that became a big thing, and it was better than it had any right to be. Aside from that, not a great cultural impact. I mean, what else do we got here? Like Hancock. I mean, it has a really bit of much cultural impact from Hancock. It's a massive hit, but it feels like it's been entirely forgotten by now. Yeah, not a massive cultural impact at all. That's going to get a 5. Number 1 in cultural impact, I'm giving to Iron Man. 2 Oscar nominations. This popularizes the cinematic universe idea. Its impact would probably be felt later, due to it being somewhat overshadowed by The Dark Knight. That's what I said. The Dark Knight was massive. Because of that, Iron Man's impact was kind of seen later on as the cinematic universe, the Marvel cinematic universe, started to come together. It proved that superhero genre still had legs after some missteps in the previous years. It made Robert Downey Jr. the star again, and it gave Marvel Studios legitimacy. I mean, Marvel was risking it all with this film, and it paid off. And now they're like a cultural behemoth, massive juggernaut. Because of that, cultural impact is absolutely massive. We don't get to any of the other films if you don't get to Iron Man. And audiences and critics loved it. They're in the 90s for both. So cultural impact, I'm giving that number 1. Number 2 to Dark Knight. Number 3 is going to Crystal Skull. Number 4 is going to go to Kung Fu Panda. And number 5, Hancock, because it didn't really make much impact. Franchise-wise, so we get 2 direct sequels and, of course, the whole MCU. Arguably, I mean, if you consider the rest of the MCU sequels, I don't know about that for later ones, but certainly for the first one, I think you can consider it. Sequels and TV series for Kung Fu Panda, which really helps. 2 sequels and a load of TV series. We only get 1 sequel to Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, so that's hurt there. We apparently have been hearing talk of another Indiana Jones for a long time. Might be coming together, but again, haven't had it yet, so because of that, it's going to lose franchise points to the Dark Knight because it's already had a sequel. We never got a sequel to Hancock despite hearing about it a lot. So number 1 is going to Iron Man. Number 2 is going to go to Kung Fu Panda, surprisingly. Number 3 is going to Dark Knight. Number 4 is going to Indy, and number 5 is going to Hancock. This is a bit of a bloodbath, folks. I'll have to see how this one's going to go. I think I know what's going through. Oh my god. Right. Here's what's happened with the score here. Number 1 is Dark Knight. Just about. Number 2 is tied between Crystal Skull and between Iron Man. So Dark Knight is through. Now the question is, which one do I send through? Now I know what I want to send through, but I also don't feel it's fair that film has to fight in second place, because it could come against something hard and be kicked out of it. I'm going to use one of my saves. I'm allowed to save 2 films. I'm going to save Iron Man, which means that from the year 2008, Dark Knight is going into first, which means that it goes automatically to round 2. Iron Man, I'm saving, which means that's going into round 2. Crystal Skull is in second because Iron Man has basically been removed from the equation. And because of that, Crystal Skull, surprisingly, is going to have a chance to fight the other second place winners. We'll have to see. We're going to do one more year before we wrap it up this week, and then we'll come back to this the next time. 2009. Again, 2008 was a massive year. 2009 is a little bit of a quieter one comparatively, but still, there's some good stuff worth talking about there. 2009 is also kind of affected somehow, or in some cases, because of writer strikes and things like that. But there's some big films here, especially a big year for animation. So we get Twilight New Moon, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Up, Ice Age, Dawn of Dinosaurs, that's the third Ice Age, and Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Bit of a lesser year for blockbusters, if you ask me, but what do I know? I'm just a guy who talks shite on a podcast. Harry Potter, 933 million. Highest grossing out of this bunch. Ice Age Dawn of Dinosaurs, 886 million. It's coming in second. Revenge of the Fallen, 836. Up 735. And Twilight New Moon, $709 million. So, as I called out the orders there, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Okay. Cost. Most expensive film here is Harry Potter 6, 250 million. Very high compared to a lot of the other Harry Potter films. So, number 1 costs, most expensive film we get there. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen is expensive, of course. Number 2, Up 175 million, very expensive. Number 3, Dawn of the Dinosaurs. Again, the Ice Age series turns out to be quite cheap most of the time. Coming at number 4, Twilight New Moon, 50 million. I believe this is the cheapest film in the whole competition, but 50 million again, not to be sneezed at. You can't really call it an independent film with 50 million, so I guess it's considered just by the skin of its teeth, and because of how it performed, it's in the competition. The originality, though, Harry Potter is the 5th sequel and based on a book. Not very original, not going to score well. Harry Potter is last when it comes to originality. Ice Age Dawn of the Dinosaurs, the 2nd sequel. This is the 3rd movie, 2nd sequel. Transformers, 1st sequel, based on a book, or based on a cartoon and all this shit. Because of that, I'm going to put it... I'm going to put it at 4th. Up is original. So that gets number 1. Twilight New Moon is the 1st sequel, and it's based on a book. I'm thinking of my scoring. Transformers is a 1st sequel. It's based on a cartoon. Yeah, okay, I'm going to stick with my scoring. Up is number 1. Twilight New Moon is number 2. Number 3 is Ice Age Dawn of Dinosaurs. Transformers number 4. And Harry Potter, not very original, getting a 5. Cultural impact. Harry Potter has 1 Oscar nomination. It's not, again, not much specific acclaim because it's a franchise. But the death of Dumbledore certainly had people talking, even if it was kind of just a book that had more cultural impact. But it was still a big enough moment. That's probably the closest we have. Ice Age Dawn of Dinosaurs, I mean, the Ice Age movies just quickly become, it's an Ice Age film. And quickly forgotten. Kids' Fair, not remembered. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen surprisingly has a good cultural impact, but not for good reasons. It's mostly remembered for doubling down on the worst aspects of the previous films, often seen as the worst film, and also for managing to come together during the writer's strike. Other troubling elements like racist robots and robot testicles mean it does have a cultural impact, but not a positive one. It has 1 Oscar nomination, and audiences liked it a lot more than critics, but critics only liked it 20%, so that's not very good. Up is still lauded as one of the more emotional Pixar films, and the iconic image of the house lifted by balloons certainly has stuck with us. I mean, people still go on about the opening to Up when they're on about sad moments in cinema. That definitely gives it a cultural impact. It was nominated for Best Picture, which had only happened once before for an animated film, which is a big deal. It only happened before for Beauty and the Beast, so big deal there. It's remembered as one of Pixar's best films. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes 98 critics, audiences are 90. Pretty good. I think the cultural impact there is going to get number 1 for cultural impact for Up. Twilight New Moon. This is a surprising one. It's going to surprise a few people. It could very arguably be said that this is a film that launched Twilight into the cultural juggernaut that it is. It was for better or worse. This is kind of what helped popularize Team Edward versus Team Jacob. I know Jacob was in the first film or whatever, but he's like barely in it from my understanding. Don't send me messages to Team Edward fans or Team Jacob fans or whoever the fuck. It made a lot more money than the first Twilight, and it certainly led to debate of all of this kind of thing and put Twilight kind of at the forefront. The first Twilight was a modest success. When the second one came around, everyone was talking about it. And again, Rotten Tomatoes scores, critics are giving it 28, but audience are giving it 61. Massive. I mean, Harry Potter, 2 more entries, obviously. It's Harry Potter. It's always going to get a sequel. So, again, can't really say it helped or hurt the franchise. It doesn't really matter. There's nothing going to stop this Harry Potter train. Nothing's going to stop the Hogwarts Express. Ice Age, we got 2 more films, so yeah, I guess grand. We got for Transformers, it carried on, but it did definitely hurt the franchise. There is no sequel to Up, so that's going to immediately put it at a 5 franchise. We did get sequels to Twilight, so that's number 1. I think it definitely helped the franchise. Got a lot of sequels out of it. Got 3 sequels out of it. So yeah, I think surprisingly, Twilight New Moon is getting a score of 1 there. Up is getting 5. What else have we got? Ice Age is getting a 2. Harry Potter's getting a 3, and finally Transformers is getting a 4. So, oh man, I'm worried about the scores. I'm just looking at the Twilight scores. I'm like, oh my god, is Twilight going to get through? I'll never hear it down. Okay. Oh, we have a tie for first place between Up and Harry Potter. Twilight misses out by 1 point. That was this is the most competitive year yet. So, wow. Okay, so number 1 is tied. Second place is Twilight. There's also a tie in third place. So, there's very little between any of these films. There's only 2 points between first place and last place, for example. But it comes down to first place being tied. So, I just need to decide which one is going straight through and which one is going to have to fight. I'm going to give it to Up. I'm going to put Up in first place. I think it has had a pretty strong cultural impact. There is going to be later Harry Potter franchises or series. This is a lot of the Pixar films have been relegated to second place. So I'm going to make the controversial choice to put that ahead and get Harry Potter to fight for its life. Oh, that was exhausting. I'm sorry it was even more exhausting to you to listen to, but anyway, there you go. Let's carry on. As we always do, let's bring this sucker to an end because it's been going on far too long already. Let us go to the useless IMDB trivia.
All trivia may be useless, but no trivia is more useless than useless IMDB trivia. That's a piece of trivia too.
Here we go, back with useless IMDB trivia. We talked about a lot of films in the Summer Blockbuster Showdown this week, and one of them is the notorious Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. So let's get some true useless IMDb trivia up in here. I have to imagine there is so much useless stuff here. Okay, 181 pieces of trivia. Let's go down to the end because that's where the awful stuff is. I don't want spoilers. I don't want to ruin Transformers 2 for anyone. What if someone's just like, what? I need to see Transformers 2. Okay. At around 48 minutes throughout the film, Wheelie calls Michaela, played by Megan Fox, warrior goddess. At one point, before Gal Gadot became known as Diana Prince / Wonder Woman, Megan Fox was considered for the role of the Amazonian princess, who is referred to as a warrior goddess throughout the comics. That is a stretch. Dude, you were fucking considered for Mr. Fantastic. You're stretching so damn much. Like, warrior goddess, that's just a thing. Megan Fox was considered, like, when? For, I don't know, Joss Whedon's Wonder Woman, like long time ago. And that's a real, like, what the writer was like, hey, I'm going to, you know, what an elaborate Easter egg that would be. Like, hey, you know, Megan Fox could be considered for Wonder Woman, apparently. That's what the rumor says. So I'll put in Warrior Goddess, because did you know Wonder Woman, like, why didn't you couldn't just call her Wonder Woman? Would have been fine. Ugh. 2 people found this uninteresting. So no one. 2 people bothered to read it. And no one found it interesting. I feel bad. I wonder, I should register an IMDb account, right? So just so I can be like, this was interesting. This was not interesting. You know, just give people an actual chance. If a bit of trivia, you know, maybe it is interesting. Maybe that's, oh my God, I'm changing the show live on air. I mean, not live, but you know. Maybe useless IMDb trivia can be useful. Wow. Anyway. That wasn't, though. That was totally useless. Apparently, Megan Fox was consideration for Wonder Woman, and one of the robots of Transformers knew it and decided to reference it. Regardless, that is our show this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, if you indeed watched it. Either way, please come back. We have the next round of our Summer Blockbuster Showdown next week, which is 2010 to 2014. We have, I'm hoping to do an episode where I look at comics that would make good TV shows, because, you know, The Boys is coming out pretty soon. And, like, I mean, come on, there's always comic book TV shows, but it doesn't matter. But what does matter is you. Thank you for checking this out. Give it a like, a subscribe, all that good stuff, wherever you're checking this out. And remember, can't spell cult without you.
This is a broadcast from the Pop Cult Pod.